Chapter 1252. Elder Wanjing coughed and lowered his stance. Ahem, actually I'm not trying to defend him. That divine artifact needs to be refined, right? To be honest, he didn't mean to break the rules, but he couldn't. In the end, Elder Wanjing couldn't finish his last word. Elder Bo Yen sneered. This isn't the first time he's made a mistake. If he doesn't learn his lesson this time, in the future, although Wanjing felt that what Elder Bo Yen said made sense, the person in front of him was still his disciple. He couldn't bear to punish him too harshly. Not to mention that this child was refining the divine artifact's soul. Now, he was officially in possession of a venerable one-god artifact. He was secretly happy, but he couldn't show it in front of Elder Bo Yen. Yes, this punishment is necessary. Elder Wanjing agreed. But, don't hurt the child's foundation, this was a rare good seedling. If he was hurt, they would be the ones feeling the heartache. Elder Bo Yen had already expected him to say this. Ever since he called Elder Wanjing over, the two had been arguing on this issue for a long time. How could he not know what Elder Wanjing was thinking? Elder Bo Yen shook his head helplessly. Wanjing, if you continue to spoil him like this, something will happen sooner or later. Elder Wanjing couldn't help but say. In the past, there was no one who could cause more trouble than this child. Back then, that girl also, Wanjing. Elder Bo Yen frowned and immediately shouted at him to stop. Only then did Elder Wanjing realize that he had said something wrong and fell silent. Chu Liuyue's heart skipped a beat. That girl, who? Almost without hesitation, Chu Liyue felt that they were talking about her. She lowered her eyes slightly, hiding the emotions that flashed across her eyes. In fact, during this period of time, she had already remembered a few things. In the past, she was almost considered a tyrant in Lingxiao College. She had done all kinds of tormenting things. She had used up all the precious herbs in the Medicine Wind Valley. One after another, it was simply uncountable. Otherwise, the elders wouldn't still have lingering fears when mentioning her after leaving the college for so long. However, until now, she still couldn't figure out how she had done those things. She didn't even know when she had broken through to the god realm. The room fell silent. Elder Bo Yen calmed himself down and looked at Chu Liyue. Chu Yu, your master loves you dearly and can't bear to punish you. However, this was a serious matter. It would be inappropriate if he was not punished. What do you think? Chu Liyue looked up, his gaze clean and sincere. Student knows his mistake and is willing to bear any punishment. Elder Wanjing wanted to say something but hesitated. However, seeing how resolute Chu Liyue was, he could only swallow his words. Elder Bo Yan's expression softened. For Chu Yu to have this kind of attitude, it wasn't like he was a rotten wood that couldn't be carved. However, after the previous 2 times, he no longer dared to completely believe that Chu Yu would change his ways. Originally, I discussed with your master to lock you up in Pingmin Mountain for a period of time. Chu Liuyue's eyes flickered. However, I did the same thing the previous 2 times, but it didn't seem to have any warning effect on you. Elder Bo Yen could tell that Chu Yu didn't seem to be afraid of this matter at all. If it was someone else, they would have become obedient after going there once. However, Chu Yu wasn't like that at all. Therefore, he felt that this method was useless against Chu Yu. Therefore, this time, I will change to another punishment. Chu Liuyue's heart suddenly felt empty. I thought I could go there again. What a pity, she paused and couldn't help but say. Elder Bo Yen, student has made a serious mistake this time and is willing to accept any punishment. You can lock me up in Pengmin Mountain again. Elder Bo Yen looked at her with a strange expression. Why? Do you really want to go there again? Chu Liyue tactfully stopped this topic. You misunderstood. I just. Student means that student will be willing to accept any punishment you give. Only then did Elder Bo Yen nod in satisfaction. It's good that you have this awareness. As for your punishment, from today onwards, you will be responsible for guarding the Beast Park for a month. Beast Park. A month. Chu Luiyue and Elder Wanjing spoke in unison. The difference was that Chu Luiyue didn't know what the Beast Park was, but Elder Wanjing was shocked that Elder Bo Yen would punish him for a month. Bo Yen. You. I don't agree. Elder Wanjing swallowed the vulgarities that were about to come out of his mouth and slammed the table angrily. What kind of place is the Beast Park? You want him to go there for a month? Aren't you sending him to his death? No. This time must be reduced. Elder Bo Yan's expression was calm as he said leisurely, if it was someone else, it would naturally be dangerous. However, don't forget that Chu has a contract with a divine beast. Since he has the ability to contract with a red-tailed phoenix, wouldn't he have the ability to guard the Beast Park for a month? Elder Wanjing choked. That's different. Those beasts in the Beast Park have always been free-range. They are untamed and violent. Even if some elders went there, they would occasionally get injured, let alone Chu Yu. You have too many concerns. Elder Bo Yen shook his head firmly. Chu Yu has caused trouble time and time again, but he is very lucky. Last time, under the siege of so many god-level experts, he managed to escape unscathed. This time, when he was refining his weapon spirit, countless Tianlei struck him, but he came out unscathed. I don't think it's enough to say that he is lucky. Chu Luiyue, Elder Wanjing was speechless. He couldn't help it. After all, he was speaking the truth. In fact, he had been grumbling about this matter for a long time. Chu Yu kept causing trouble, but this trouble was not something that ordinary people could cause. That also required some ability. Knowing that there was no room for discussion, Elder Wanjing hesitated for a long time before agreeing. Let him go, but if he encounters any danger, I will immediately bring him out. As he spoke, he looked at Chu Luiyue and reminded him. Chu Yu, if anything goes wrong, immediately use your Black Jade token to call for help. Master will definitely rush over immediately. Don't force yourself at any time. Do you understand? Chu Luiyue felt a warmth in his heart. Thank you, Master. Elder Wanjing looked at the young man in front of him. Probably because he had gone through a lot yesterday, he didn't have a good rest today. His face was haggard and his lips were pale. But when he smiled like this, his eyes were clean and his smile was warm. It made people want to smile with him unconsciously. This child could only smile so innocently now. When he found out what kind of place the Beast Park was, he was afraid. Elder Bo Yen stood up. Let's go. We will send you there personally. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1253. Chu Luiyue's brows twitched slightly. She had been imprisoned at Pingmin Mountain twice. The first time, it was Elder Wenxi who sent her there. The second time, it was Rongxiu. However, this time, Elder Bo Yen actually planned to send her there personally. What exactly was the place that made him so cautious? Of course, this did not exclude the possibility that Elder Bo Yen could not assign anyone to send her there in order to prevent the news from spreading. However, judging from Elder Wanjing's vehement objection, that Beast Park should not be a good place to stay. At the very least, when she was imprisoned at Pingmin Mountain, Elder Wanjing was never worried about her safety. But this time, Chu Luiyue collected her thoughts and followed closely behind the two of them. The three of them came out of the Donghuang Bell Tower and went straight to the Beast Park. After walking for a while, Chu Luiyue realized that they were heading towards the Xian Master's area. Elder Wanjing seemed to have seen through her doubts and moved closer to her to explain. Elder Wanjing said, "The Beast Park is indeed within the Xian Master's area, but it does not belong to them alone. The martial artists and Xian Master's elders will take turns to patrol here." Chu Luiyue nodded. Elder Wanjing saw that her expression was normal and thought to himself that this brat still did not know what she was going to face later. He could not help but sigh in his heart. Chu Luiyue saw his worry and thought for a while before asking, "Master, is the Beast Park very dangerous?" Elder Wanjing paused. "Forget it. You will know when we get there." Chu Luiyue could only suppress her curiosity. After going around the rugged mountains, Chu Luiyue even saw a few high-level Xian formations in the middle. After about an hour, Elder Bo Yen finally stopped. "We're here. The Beast Park is below us." Chu Luiyue took a few steps forward and followed Elder Bo Yan's line of sight. Dozens of mountains stretched endlessly. The trees were lush and white mist drifted in the middle of the mountains. At first glance, it looked like a quiet mountain forest. It was no different from the other places in the academy. However, Chu Luiyue knew that things were not that simple. Because in the sky above this mountain region, there was actually a huge silver profound formation. It floated quietly in the air, covering the entire forest in a translucent state. Through the gaps between the streams of light, one could clearly see the scenery below. However, everyone who stood here could feel the astonishing pressure coming from the profound formation. He would never dare to be impudent. Chu Luiyue held his breath. This Xian formation was definitely one of the best Xian formations she had ever seen in her life. Compared to the Academy's barrier, it was not inferior at all. One had to know that constructing such a Xian formation required the joint efforts of many experts. The amount of manpower and resources consumed was incalculable. To be able to construct such a Xian formation within the academy without caring about the cost, it was enough to prove the preciousness of the area under the Xian formation. Chu Luiyue's gaze carefully swept across the profound formation, and he vaguely felt a few obscure yet valiant auras. That should be the elders in charge of patrolling. In the next moment, Elder Bo Yen flew down. Elder Wanjing patted Chu Luiyue's shoulder. "Let's go." Chu Luiyue nodded, and rushed down without hesitation. The three of them stood about 100 meters away from the silver profound formation. Standing there, Chu Luiyue could clearly feel the valiant pressure from the profound formation. "I wonder what the situation inside is like," Chu Luiyue thought to himself. Suddenly, an aura rapidly approached. A middle-aged man stepped out from behind the profound formation. "Bo Yen, Wanjing, why are you guys here?" This man was wearing a white robe, his figure was tall and skinny, and his eyes were sharp. When his gaze swept across them, it made them not dare to move. "Who is this? You guys even brought a brat here." Elder Bo Yen explained, "This is Chu Yu." After saying that, Chu Luiyue clearly saw a look of understanding flash across the other party's face. It seemed like he had long heard of her great name. Elder Bo Yen raised his chin. "This is Elder Yu Yu." Chu Luiyue inexplicably felt a little embarrassed, but he still bowed respectfully. "Student Chu Yu greets Elder Yu Yu. Chu Yu, this brat, has committed some crimes recently. Wanjing and I have discussed and decided to throw him here for a month to let him suffer a little and learn from his mistakes." Elder Bo Yen said very straightforwardly. Elder Yu Yu looked at Chu Luiyue with some surprise. What exactly did he do to end up in such a situation? Bo Yen usually wouldn't casually put someone here, let alone for a month. "How is your current strength?" Elder Yu Yu raised his chin and asked. "Take note, I asked all of it." Chu Luiyue paused, and said sincerely, "This student is currently at the middle of the 7th rank, 9th rank Celestial Physician, 9th rank Xian Master." After saying that, the scene fell silent for a moment. The three elders looked at Chu Luiyue in unison. Chu Yu, when did you break through to the 9th rank of the Xian Master? Elder Wanjing couldn't help but ask. Chu Luiyue blinked. Just, not long ago. She originally didn't want to say this, but as a Xian Master, Elder Yu Yu's eyesight was very good. She didn't dare to guarantee that if she lied now, she wouldn't be taught a lesson later. Moreover, from the fact that she could open the academy's barrier, he could basically guess this. Elder Wanzhang's lips moved, but he didn't say anything. In the end, he glanced at Elder Bo Yen and snorted. See that? This brat's strength was stronger than they expected. If something really happened to such a rare seedling, he definitely wouldn't let Bo Yen off. Not bad, you're quite honest. Elder Yu nodded. Go in. Digression, remember to watch the pinned event. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1254. Chu Luiyue was stunned. She just went in like that. Elder Yu looked at her strangely. Why, is there a problem? Chu Luiyue shook her head. Seems like this Elder Yu is a swift and decisive person. But this is good too, it saves me a lot of trouble. She took half a step forward and suddenly stopped. She turned back to look at Elder Bo Yen and asked hesitantly. Elder, I wonder if Senior Rong Xiao and the others, they have their own punishments, you don't have to worry about that. Elder Bo Yen waved his hand. In this 1 month, you just have to reflect here. Seeing that she could not get anything out of him, Chu Luiyue could only nod her head. This student understands. With that, she continued to walk forward and step through the entrance of the spirit barrier. When her figure disappeared, Elder Yu raised his eyebrows and looked at Elder Wanjing. 1 month. Wanjing, you are really willing to part with it? Elder Wanjing snorted and turned his head away. If Bo Yen did not insist on doing this, would he have agreed? He had only taken in this disciple for 2 months and had been locked up in Pengmin Mountain for 40 days. The amount of time he had spent cultivating with him was only slightly more than 10 days. How could he not feel heartache? But what could he do? Who asked that brat to always cause trouble? No matter how protective he was, there were times when he had no other choice. Elder Bo Yen suddenly spoke up. 1 month might not be able to smooth out his temper. He could see that he had to use extreme methods to deal with Chu Yu. Otherwise, he would not be able to suppress him. You have such a high opinion of him. Elder Yu was surprised. Humph, Elder Bo Yen laughed. Wait till he stays with you for a period of time, you will know. Elder Yu's heart jumped and a trace of uneasiness appeared. Alright, since he's already here, we'll take our leave first. For the remaining month, I will leave that brat to you. Elder Bo Yen finished and was about to leave with Elder Wanjing. For some reason, Elder Yu inexplicably felt as if he had finally gotten rid of a certain troublesome problem. Elder Wanjing reluctantly glanced at the barrier. Although he couldn't see anything, he still prayed for his precious disciple in his heart. This month, please don't let anything happen. After Bo Yen and Elder Wanjing left, Elder Yu also quickly returned to the spirit barrier. Beast Park. Not long after entering this place, Chu Luiyue understood where this name came from. The surroundings were filled with the unique aura of magical beasts. There was a faint smell of blood in the air. That was clearly a unique smell that only came from the blood that flowed out of the torn flesh. Chu Luiyue was walking on a narrow path in the mountains. Bushes grew on both sides of the road, and the branches were luxuriant. The afterglow cast mottled shadows on the ground. It was silent and windless. She walked forward step by step. Occasionally, one could see the marks of magical beasts on the ground. The deeper she went, the tighter her muscles became, and her mind was highly focused. She paid full attention to every tiny sound and every subtle change in her surroundings. Along the way, she turned back to look once. Elder Yu didn't follow her. Obviously, they had made up their minds to let her do everything herself. Roar! Suddenly, a low and violent tiger roar came from the side of the mountain. Chu Luiyue immediately turned to look. Separated by the dense forest, she couldn't see clearly what was going on. However, the powerful pressure contained in that roar caused her mind to go blank for a moment. That was an inestimable power. It was at least a 9th-grade magical beast. Chu Luiyue's heart instantly jumped. There were probably more than 1 or 2 magical beasts in this beast park. She took a deep breath and examined her surroundings more carefully before continuing forward. Swoosh! The sound of something piercing through the air could be heard. Chu Luiyue's eyes sharpened, and she quickly dodged to the side. Thud! An extremely sharp grayish-brown steel needle stabbed into the spot where Chu Luiyue was standing just now. The steel needle was thick at the top and sharp at the bottom. Its tip was about the size of an adult's pinky finger. The lower it went, the sharper it became. Because it was wrapped in a powerful force, the tip of the needle was still shaking slightly after it was inserted into the ground. And on the originally flat mountain ground, a few cracks suddenly appeared. This showed how powerful this thing was. If this needle were to hit her body, it would probably pierce through her flesh in an instant. But the key was that this wasn't a yuan instrument. Because there were some fresh bloodstains on its tip, and if one looked carefully, there was a layer of fine hair on it. This was obviously, bang! 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 Heavy and majestic footsteps sounded, and the ground trembled. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat, and she stared in the direction of the sound. A huge figure gradually appeared in her line of sight. It was a wild beast that was brownish-black in color. It was tall and sturdy, with 4 strong legs, a silver horn on its head, and a string of steel needles on its back. This was the thing that was shot at Chu Luiyue just now. Its orange-yellow eyes were cold and indifferent, and they were wrapped in a shocking pressure. Its huge feet stepped on the ground, and its sharp claws were clearly visible. There was no doubt that this foot could directly trample a person into meat paste. Chu Luiyue's breathing stagnated. A 9th grade steel spine beast. She had only heard of this kind of magical beast in rumors. It was said that it was born as a 9th grade magical beast, and it was extremely strong. As it grew older, its body would rapidly expand. After it reached adulthood, it would break through the shackles and become a divine beast. It was said that the powerful god-tier steel spine beast's body was as heavy as a mountain. Wherever it went, it would be majestic. The steel needle-like thing on its back was one of its most basic trump cards. It was incomparably hard and extremely sharp. Most importantly, it contained a strong poison. Once injured, a 9th grade martial artist of the same level would die in less than an hour. This showed how powerful this steel spine beast was. And the one in front of her, although its body was huge, it hadn't broken through to the god tier and should still be considered a cub. Of course, even if it was a cub, its body was still terrifyingly huge. Chu Luiyue stood in front of it, as small as an ant. She wasn't even as tall as one of its legs. Under such circumstances, if the other party wanted to directly trample her to death, it seemed to be only a matter of minutes. Both sides were in a stalemate. The steel spine beast first glanced at the steel needle on the ground that had missed, as if it was somewhat dissatisfied that it didn't succeed. Then, its eyes turned and looked at Chu Luiyue. Cold. Awe-inspiring. That was the disdain and indifference based on its powerful strength. A strong killing intent appeared in its eyes. Bang! It raised its leg and took a step forward. Chapter 1255. The origin power in Chu Luiyue's body surged, and starlight flashed on her fingertips. She wouldn't use Scarlet Heaven's sword unless it was a critical moment. Although the steel spine beast in front of her was dangerous, with her current strength, she might not be a match for it. At the very least, escape was the best strategy. However, at this moment, a strange rustling sound suddenly came from behind her. Chu Liyue didn't want to look back, but the sound was getting closer and closer, and it even carried a hint of danger. She had no choice but to be cautious. Thus, she turned her body sideways and quickly glanced in that direction. With this look, Chu Liyue's pupils shrank, and her scalp went numb. Because what came from behind her was actually a group of snakes. Not just one, but a group of snakes entangled with each other. At a glance, there were at least 100 of them. These snakes were about the thickness of a thumb, and their bodies were colorful. Under the afterglow, they reflected a cold and magnificent light. However, at this moment, Chu Liyue wasn't in the mood to appreciate it. Instead, her hair stood on end. Because each of these snakes was a 9th-grade magical beast, the triangular sword-toothed snake. The reason for this name was that their heads were flat and triangular. Every time they were in attack mode, 2 sharp sword-shaped teeth would be exposed, flickering with a cold white light. Of course, they were also poisonous. Their toxicity was stronger than that of the steel spine beast. At this moment, they were in groups and were heading toward Chu Liyue. Wherever they passed, the ground would emit a faint rustling sound. She didn't feel it earlier, but after seeing their true appearance and hearing this sound, Chu Liyue felt her whole body go numb. Now, she was attacked from 2 sides, and she couldn't advance or retreat. In front of her was the steel spine beast, and behind her was the triangular sword-toothed snake. No matter which one it was, she didn't have full confidence that she could finish them off or repel them without getting injured. Chu Liyue clearly felt her whole body stiffen. If Dumpling was here now, these problems could be easily solved. After all, it was a red-tailed phoenix with a noble bloodline. Even if it only relied on this layer of natural bloodline suppression, it would be able to subdue these guys. But now, how could she beat them all by herself? At this moment, Chu Liyue finally understood why Elder Wanjing was so against this punishment when Elder Bo Yen suggested it. She recalled the meaningful look in Elder Wanjing's eyes before she left. At that time, she had naively thought that it was because he couldn't bear to part with her, but now it seemed that he was clearly worried about her little life. Beast Park, Beast Park. Chu Liyue crazily thought about how to solve her current predicament as she circulated all the strength in her body. 5 specks of light had already appeared on her fingertips. If she couldn't, then she could only ask the help of the 3-eyed eagle. But in the end, it was the last plan was beast was. Many of the 2 was bice beasts, be like beasts, beasts. Jiang Ziyuan had already begun to suspect her because she had brought along a red-tailed phoenix. Fortunately, Lu Yintong had one as well, which gave her room to explain herself. But once she knew about the existence of the 3-eyed eagle, she would be able to confirm Chu Liyue's true identity. It could be said that it was a coincidence for cultivators in this world to have beasts of the same race. But if one had 2, there was definitely a problem. Chu Liyue didn't know much about the Beast Park. Other than Elder Bo Yen mentioning that there were a few elders patrolling the area, she wasn't sure if there were other people around. Moreover, if the elders knew about this, they wouldn't be able to keep it a secret. Although there were many elders in Lingxiao College and they each had their own duties, they still kept in contact with each other. Moreover, information was passed on very quickly. This was good for the college. It allowed the college to deal with many things quickly and efficiently. But it wasn't so good for Chu Liyue now. The 3 parties were speechless. The surrounding space seemed to be solidifying inch by inch. Chu Liyue's heart was beating violently. Thump. Thump. The steel spine beast and the three-horned sword-toothed snake also noticed each other's existence. Hiss! Many of the three-horned sword-toothed snakes made strange and numbing sounds. Their green eyes flashed with undisguised ruthlessness and murderous intent. Bang! The steel spine beast took a step forward. The rocks under its feet shattered and the ground shook. It didn't show any signs of weakness. Chu Luiyue instantly understood something. This is... Both parties entered a hostile state because of fighting for her. Of course, Chu Luiyue was very clear that they weren't fighting for her because they liked her. They were fighting for the right and opportunity to kill her. Fight! Start fighting! Chu Luiyue shouted silently in her heart. As long as both parties were fighting, she could find a chance to leave this place. Chi! The steel spine beast made the first move. A steel needle shot out from its back. Tut! That thing was very fast. Chu Luiyue only saw a straight and blurry mark. The next moment, she heard a familiar sound. That steel needle was inserted into the position one step away from the three-horned sword-toothed snake. Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly tightened. No fiend could remain calm after being provoked like this. This time, a fierce battle was unavoidable. Hiss! Just as Chu Luiyue was waiting for the chaotic battle to begin, the three-horned sword-toothed snake suddenly started to retreat. Chu Luiyue was stunned. What was going on? They weren't fighting anymore. But before she could figure it out, the steel spine beast turned around and raised its foot to step on her. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1256. Chu Luiyue almost cursed out loud. This triangular sword-teethed snake was too useless. They were so brave just a moment ago. The steel spine beast had only launched a probing attack, and they actually retreated just like that. This decision was made too hastily. Chu Luiyue simply couldn't understand. Although the triangular sword-teethed snake's individual combat power couldn't compare to the steel spine beast, they had the advantage in numbers. They didn't even have a friendly spar. Wasn't this too cowardly? She didn't have time to think too much. Seeing the steel spine beast charging straight at her, she quickly dodged to the side. Bam! The steel spine beast stomped heavily on the ground. A rather deep pit appeared on the originally flat ground. Several cracks quickly spread out in all directions. Chu Luiyue randomly chose a direction with dense forest and quickly headed forward. She had already entered the beast park. Danger lurked in all directions. It didn't matter which direction she went. The most important thing now was to get rid of the steel spine beast as soon as possible. The denser the forest, the more advantageous it was for her. Chu Luiyue's movements were nimble. In the blink of an eye, her figure had disappeared into the lush forest. Roar! The steel spine beast raised its head and roared. The trees that were relatively close to him were crushed by this pressure and actually directly exploded. The steel spine beast lifted its leg and ran in the direction of Chu Luiyue. As for the triangular sword-teethed snake, after retreating for a distance, it suddenly dispersed. Hundreds of snakes scattered in all directions. Their bodies were very small. Once they burrowed into the grass, they could hide perfectly. Therefore, after dispersing, they burrowed into the forest and hid themselves. There was only the extremely subtle sound of snake scales sliding across the ground. It was occasionally audible, but it also disappeared very quickly. Chu Luiyue used her full speed to escape forward. She leaped and jumped like a mountain elf. Her figure was faintly discernible in the forest. But even so, she couldn't successfully shake off the steel spine beast that was chasing after her. Its destructive power was even more terrifying than Chu Luiyue had expected. She originally thought that by relying on these dense trees, she could form an obstacle to the steel spine beast and slow it down. But in reality, the steel spine beast didn't care about this at all. Its physical strength was extremely strong. Everywhere it passed, it destroyed everything in its path. Thus, one man and one beast, one at the front and one at the back, began to compete in the forest. Elder Yu stood with his hands behind his back and waited at the foot of the mountain for a while. Even if he didn't see it for himself, he could roughly guess what had happened from the changes in the energy fluctuations. He couldn't help but snort. It seemed like Chu Yu was already entangled. He didn't know how long this kid could last. One had to know that in this place, apart from the cubs, the lowest level of adult magical beasts was level 9. They were not easy to deal with. Furthermore, in order to nurture and stimulate the abilities of these magical beasts to the greatest extent, there was basically no one in the entire beast park other than a few elders who were in charge of maintenance and patrolling. These demonic beasts were especially sensitive to the aura of humans, and they were born with a strong desire to attack. Chu Yu's talent and strength were not bad, but he was still a child in the end. He was no match for these magical beasts. Let's hope this kid can survive the night. He glanced at the setting sun and shook his head with a smile. The sky quickly darkened. The forest was shady, and the lighting was even worse. As Chu Luiyue ran forward, she secretly thought of other ways. This couldn't go on. She couldn't shake off the steel spine beasts with her own strength. Furthermore, as time passed, her physical strength was rapidly depleting, and her speed inevitably decreased. However, the steel spine beasts seemed to be getting braver as they fought. They were born to be good at fighting, and their explosive power and endurance were extremely strong. Chu Luiyue was really worried that they would drag her to her death in the end. It wasn't that she didn't think of fighting the steel spine beasts head-on. In fact, she had already accumulated her strength and was prepared at the beginning. However, when she saw the triangular sword-toothed snakes choose to retreat, she hesitated. To be able to make them so fearful was enough to prove the power of these steel spine beasts. Although she could fight against a level 8 warrior now, she could only lose in front of a level 9 warrior. Moreover, level 9 warriors of the same level were far inferior to level 9 magical beasts in terms of combat strength. After thinking about it, it wasn't feasible to use force. She had to think of other ways. However, this steel spine beast kept chasing after her relentlessly. She didn't even have a chance to breathe, so what other good ideas could she have? Suddenly, Chu Luiyue felt a warning in her heart. Her mind was highly tense, and she immediately forced herself to stop. Previously, she had been moving forward at high speed. Now that she suddenly stopped, it caused the blood in her lungs to churn. However, she couldn't care less about this now. Because, danger was ahead. Bang! The sound of heavy footsteps could be heard. This sound was somewhat familiar. It was very similar to the footsteps of the steel spine beasts, but it was several times heavier. This time, she clearly hadn't seen the other party's shadow, but Chu Luiyue felt that the other party had directly stepped on her heart. She stood on a tree and held onto the tree trunk with one hand. Her entire body was tense, and she almost suffocated. The next moment, a figure that was like a small mountain appeared in front of her. With just a glance, Chu Luiyue immediately recognized that this was also a steel spine beast. Moreover, its body size was several times that of the previous one. This was definitely an adult steel spine beast. It was walking towards her. Trees fell and rocks shattered. For a moment, Chu Luiyue almost suspected that this mountain might be flattened by it. Bang! 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 Suddenly, for some reason, the steel spine beast behind her suddenly sped up. Roar! This cry was very different from the previous one. It lacked the cold and dignified aura and had a hint of joy and coquettishness. And this was clearly aimed at the steel-spine beast that had just appeared opposite them. Chu Luiyue hurriedly turned back to take a look, and her heart immediately turned cold. These two seemed to be mother and son. Then what other way did she have to leave this place safely and unharmed? Her hands were tightly clasped on the tree trunk, and her knuckles turned white. Because of the long run, she had consumed a lot of strength. At this time, her forehead was already covered with fine beads of sweat, and her back was almost drenched. I can't go on like this, Chu Luiyue gritted her teeth. If I'm really forced into a desperate situation, then I have no choice but to show my trump card. Boom! The steel spine beast cub rushed over and directly hit the tree Chu Luiyue was on. The tree, which was as thick as two people hugging it, instantly collapsed. Chu Luiyue tiptoed and was about to fly up. However, the steel spine beast seemed to have expected it and directly pounced over. Chapter 1257. If this stomp landed, Chu Luiyue would probably become a pile of minced meat on the spot. Chu Luiyue's mind raced, and a biting cold aura gathered in her palm. However, just as that kick was about to land and Chu Luiyue was about to fight to the death, the adult steel spine beast that was originally standing opposite suddenly rushed over and knocked the steel spine beast to the ground with its head. Bang! The steel spine beast cub's heavy body flew out, and the trees along the way fell one after another. After dragging for a long distance, it finally stopped. There was a deep rut left on the ground, and gravel and broken wood were scattered everywhere. It was a mess. Chu Luiyue was dumbfounded. The steel spine beast cub that was sent flying was also dumbfounded. The surroundings were silent. Chu Luiyue stiffened her neck and looked at the adult steel spine beast standing beside her. What's going on? Why is it helping me? Could it be that the steel spine beast cub isn't its? But soon, she dispelled this guess. Because after the steel spine beast cub came back to its senses, it didn't get up and just wailed. Roar! Chu Luiyue subconsciously looked back and saw it lying on the ground, looking at the adult steel spine beast in disbelief. Its eyes were filled with grievance and pity. Roar, roar! The next moment, Chu Luiyue clearly saw a layer of mist quickly accumulating in the cub's lantern-like eyes. Drip! Drip! Fist-sized teardrops kept falling and hitting the ground, creating small puddles. Chu Luiyue, if it weren't for my parents, it probably wouldn't have such a reaction. However, this cub didn't seem to be very well received. Because when the adult steel spine beast saw it crying, not only did it not comfort it, but it also walked over and kicked it. The cub didn't expect his parents to be so ruthless to him. He didn't pay attention and was kicked out again. The crying stopped abruptly, and then it rolled a few more times. Perhaps it was because the steelback beast was naturally thick-skinned, so it didn't show any mercy this time. The sound of flesh and bones being kicked made Chu Luiyue's eyes twitch. I really didn't expect things to develop in this direction. Roar! The adult steelback beast roared at the cub, sounding a little strict. The cub had suffered a loss and learned its lesson. Finally, it no longer dared to cause trouble. It put away its previous temper and obediently admitted its mistake. The adult steel spine beast roared again. It was unknown what it said, but the cub suddenly raised its head. A look of shock flashed across its eyes. Then, it glanced at Chu Luiyue and shook its head frantically. Roar! The adult steel spine beast let out another roar, causing the cub to pause and immediately become obedient. Chu Luiyue stood aside awkwardly. Why did it seem like he was the one who got into a fight with the other party's child, but after the other party's parents came, not only did they not blame him, they even lectured his child. Wasn't the quality of this adult steel spine beast a little too high? Chu Luiyue originally wanted to leave. However, considering that he couldn't even compare to the cub's speed, he definitely had no chance against this adult steel spine beast. He might as well stay here and see what the other party's attitude was. After waiting for a while, the two steel spine beasts finally finished their conversation. Of course, this conversation was only the adult steel spine beast teaching the cub a lesson. Bang! The adult steel spine beast walked over. The cub followed behind dejectedly. Chu Luiyue's heart tightened. It's here. She subconsciously straightened her back and looked up. It couldn't be helped. The other party was too big. Chu Luiyue could only see the other party's thigh. The adult steel spine beast stood not far in front of her. On the other hand, the cub moved over step by step. Anyone could see that its face was full of reluctance. As if disdaining its slow movements, the adult steel spine beast behind it raised its leg and kicked its butt again. Ugh! The cub almost flew up from the kick and subconsciously turned its head. It originally wanted to protest, but when it met the pair of intimidating eyes, it immediately stopped. After hesitating for a while, it only let out a low sound from its throat, which sounded very pitiful. The adult steel spine beast was unmoved and raised its head. The cub could only retract its gaze and walk over to Chu Luiyue step by step. The human and beast looked at each other. The cub glared at Chu Luiyue and then lowered its head, aggrieved. Chu Luiyue was still confused when she saw the steel spine beast cub's head stretch out in front of her. The silver horn was not far in front of her. She could reach it by raising her hand. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment, then suddenly understood something. This is an apology. As soon as this guess appeared, Chu Luiyue subconsciously wanted to deny it. Because this was simply too absurd. One had to know that a moment ago, she was being chased by this steel spine beast with nowhere to run and almost died at its feet. And now, not only did it stop attacking, but it was also apologizing so humbly. This was simply too shocking. However, other than this reason, Chu Luiyue could not think of any other explanation. She looked at the adult steel spine beast behind her in a daze. She saw that pair of eyes. Deep, dignified, but with a trace of undetectable nostalgia. Chu Luiyue suddenly felt an extremely familiar feeling in her heart. This steel spine beast, she opened her mouth, but no words came out. A bold idea quickly flashed through her mind. Perhaps, she had met it long ago. As if sensing her emotional fluctuations, the steel-backed beast finally came forward. It looked into Chu Luiyue's eyes and lowered its head. Unfortunately, it was still too tall. Even if Chu Luiyue raised her hand, she couldn't reach it. After realizing this, it blinked and half-knelt without any hesitation. Then, it moved forward, gentle and dependent. Chu Luiyue felt something rush out from the bottom of her heart. She subconsciously reached out and stroked its head. The steel spine beast's skin and flesh were very rough and hard. It felt like touching a piece of iron. But for some reason, Chu Luiyue's heart softened. Suddenly, her gaze focused and she saw that there seemed to be a scar on the steel spine beast's horn. It looked like someone had cut it with a sharp weapon, about half an inch long. It was difficult to notice from afar, but standing close, it was clearly visible. Chu Luiyue subconsciously touched it. In an instant, images rushed out from her mind. She frowned and almost fell to the ground. The steel spine beast looked at her worriedly. Chu Luiyue closed her eyes and took a step forward, leaning closer to it. The steel spine beast let her hug it without moving. The cub watched from the side, not knowing what to do. After a long time, Chu Luiyue sighed softly. Ah, Cheong, I'm back. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1258. Ever since she knew that she had lost a part of her memory, Chu Luiyue started to think of all sorts of ways to make herself remember. Previously, she had tried many methods and experienced a lot of torture, but most of the time, it was futile. She couldn't remember no matter how hard she tried. She didn't remember how she came to the Divine Ruins world. She didn't know how she got first place on the Green Cloud roll. She didn't know what she had done in Lingxiao College and why she had forgotten everything in the end. Many times, she even felt that what she did was meaningless. Since the fog was already there and she couldn't see clearly, wouldn't it be better if she didn't look at it? But now, she finally realized that it wasn't meaningless. Because what was behind the fog was the scenery that she couldn't bear to forget. Just like now, she suddenly remembered some of the things that happened in the Beast Park. Even though her memory was still incomplete and not very clear, but it was still very precious to her. Ah, Cheong! Chu Luiyue took a deep breath and hid the tears in her eyes. She hugged it tightly, then let go of her hand and took a few steps back. She carefully sized it up and smiled brightly. Ah, Cheong, you've grown up. A few years ago, when they first met in the Beast Park, it wasn't much older than the cub next to it. She didn't expect it to be an adult now and even have a child. Ah, Cheong intimately rubbed against her palm and stood up. Its eyes were filled with joy and excitement. Actually, at the beginning, it wasn't too sure about Chu Luiyue's identity, so it had a cautious attitude. But now, it could finally be at ease. Oh. The cub, who had been ignored for a long time, finally found a chance to interrupt. Its eyes moved back and forth between Chu Luiyue and its mother, full of confusion and confusion. Obviously, it had been ignorant until now. It was clearly its mother's son. Why did its mother treat this human who suddenly appeared better than it did itself? Chu Luiyue looked at its jealous and angry expression and couldn't help but laugh. Don't worry, I won't snatch your mother. The cub's eyes were full of suspicion. Not snatching. Then why was its mother so good to it? And she even hugged her mother just now. Not to mention that her mother had hit it for the first time because of her. It was very angry, and the consequences were very serious. Thus, it went to its mother's side and rubbed itself against her like a spoiled child, looking at her with eager eyes. Let her go. Let her go. Let her go. Bang! Its body was once again kicked away by its mother. Roar! I can't live like this anymore, woo-woo. Chu Luiyue's eyebrows twitched slightly. Ah, Cheong, you're a mother now. Why hasn't your temper changed at all? He's your son after all, ao. Exactly. To think that even this human would say something like that. Mother sure is ruthless. Ah, Cheong glanced at it. It quickly shut its mouth, not daring to say another word. It finally understood that this human was its natural nemesis. Unfortunately, her mother was too biased towards her, so she definitely couldn't do anything today. We'll wait until we have a chance to counterattack. Seeing that it had finally calmed down, Cheong looked at Chu Luiyue. How would this little fellow understand? If it wasn't for this woman in front of it, it would have ceased to exist long ago. Chu Luiyue laughed. Let's go. Let's go and see your current home. Late at night. The moon was in the middle of the sky. Elder Yu, who was sitting on a certain mountain, kept the Xian formation in front of him and looked up. It's already so late. I wonder how Chu Yu is doing now. Thinking of this, he looked towards the distant mountains. In the quiet night, other than the occasional wind blowing through the mountains, there was no other sound. Everything was the same as usual. Strange. Elder Yu stroked his beard. Logically speaking, when a stranger enters the Beast Park, it will definitely attract the attacks of many magical beasts. It shouldn't be so quiet. This situation was really strange. But he was sure that Chuyu wasn't in trouble. Otherwise, the Xian formation would have already acted strangely. Could it be that he found a secluded place to hide? Suddenly, he clapped his hands. TSK, how could I forget that he still has a contracted divine beast? It was said that it was a red-tailed phoenix with a very pure bloodline. With such a divine beast keeping watch, ordinary magical beasts really wouldn't find trouble with him. This saved Chuyu a lot of trouble. Elder Yu couldn't help but laugh. Let's hope that tomorrow can still be so peaceful. In this beast park, there was an existence that wasn't afraid of the red-tailed phoenix. That night, with Acheong's help, Chu Luiyue could finally rest peacefully. In the cave where they lived, Chu Luiyue and Acheong chatted briefly about some things. Then, she leaned against a huge rock alone and rested her head on her arm, planning to sleep. Acheong also knew that she was very tired today, so she didn't disturb her and stayed by her side to guard her. But Chu Luiyue didn't sleep well. In her dream, there were some familiar and unfamiliar scenes. Most of them were related to the Beast Park. Of course, there was also Acheong. Speaking of which, they could be considered to be fated. When Chu Luiyue first came to the Beast Park, the first magical beast she encountered was it. At that time, it was being chased by other divine beasts. While fleeing in a sorry state, it met Chu Luiyue. She helped it escape and even gave it a name. But there was no contract. Chu Luiyue thought. At that time, she had already contracted Dumpling. Suddenly, Chu Luiyue opened her eyes. Dumpling had also followed her to the Divine Ruins world. She actually never thought of asking it what it still remembered. Digression, I apologize to everyone again. Yesterday, there was a blunder. I originally planned to refund everyone Xiaoxiang dollars, but because there were many subscription platforms, Hongshou, QQ, and other readers couldn't refund them one by one. So, in the end, I replaced the repeated chapter with today's first update. Those who have subscribed can continue to read as usual. I'm really sorry for causing trouble for everyone. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1259. Sensing the movement on Chu Luiyue's side, both of them looked over. Acheong looked at her worriedly. Chu Luiyue gave it a reassuring look. Don't worry, I'm fine. As she said that, she rubbed her temples. That's right, why didn't I think of it before? When she was in her teens, she had already made a contract with her own magical beast. At that time, Dumpling was only a 9-colored heavenly pheasant, but at that time, it was already considered one of the most powerful magical beasts in the entire Tianling dynasty. After she successfully made the contract, her father even held a palace banquet to celebrate. From then on, Dumpling had been following her. And coming to the Divine Ruins world was something that happened later. Logically speaking, Dumpling should have come with her at that time. But after so long, Dumpling had never mentioned this. Dumpling. Chu Luiyue called out in her heart, but there was no response. Only then did she remember that Dumpling had stayed at Thousand Wine Mountain and was not by her side now. She frowned. It seemed that she would have to wait a month before she could clarify this matter. She sat in a daze for a while before lying down again. This time, she finally fell asleep in a daze. While Chu Luiyue spent the night in the Beast Park with complicated feelings, the people outside were also not calm. Thousand Wine Mountain. On the top of the mountain, beside the spring, there were a few figures standing. Standing in the middle was Elder Bo Yen, beside him were Elder Ouyang and Shang Yusin. Is this what you've done? Elder Bo Yen looked around and asked faintly. Even though he had heard them talk about it before, when he saw this scene, he could not help but feel angry. These people really knew how to cause trouble. The punishment from before was really too light. Cough. Elder Ouyang coughed. Actually, it's mainly the surrounding trees and rocks that were destroyed, but there's no problem with the spring, Elder Bo Yen sneered. If there was a problem with the spring, do you think I would still be here talking to you about this? Elder Ouyang shut his mouth awkwardly. Shang Yusin was still relatively relaxed. Bo Yen, since this has already happened, there's no point in talking about it anymore, right? What's more, those who should be punished have already been punished. None of us escaped punishment, right? Why don't we start right away and restore this place as soon as possible? Elder Bo Yen gave him a warning look. There will be no next time. Although the 10,000 Wine Mountain had been sealed, it could only be repaired at night. That was why they had waited until now to come. As he spoke, Elder Bo Yen walked to the side of the spring and carefully examined it. The mouth of the spring, which gurgled during the day, became very calm at night. Under the calm surface of the water, streaks of silver tianlei gathered and intertwined with each other. I already said that there's nothing wrong with the spring. Shang Yusin laughed. You don't trust me and Ouyang. At that time, we were very careful. Elder Bo Yen looked away. This spring has great implications. It's best to be cautious. After all, they had caused such a huge commotion, so of course he would be worried. Elder Ouyang nodded in agreement. Bo Yen is right. For this thing, our entire academy has put in a lot of effort. We don't dare to have any problems. Calculating the time, it seems that it's almost time, right? Elder Bo Yen shook his head. It was originally going to end, but some time ago, Chiyu came and caused a ruckus, causing the number of tianlei in here to decrease. The time was delayed again. Fortunately, he didn't take much away at that time. After some time, it will be able to recover. Elder Ouyang sighed. In the end, this Chiyu really knows how to cause trouble. Fortunately, you threw him into the beast park this time. You have to polish his character properly. Otherwise, what would happen if he was always so bold and arrogant? Elder Bo Yen nodded. I think so too. Chiyu had a precious treasure in his hands, so it was inevitable that he would attract the envy and jealousy of many people. If he didn't improve his strength as soon as possible, no one knew what would happen in the future. After all, it was impossible for any so-called backer to protect him from afar all the time. In the end, becoming stronger was the most important thing. I wonder how that kid is doing in the Beast Park now. As Elder Ouyang spoke, he glanced in the direction of the Beast Park. He probably won't be able to sleep on the first night, right? Elder Bo Yen laughed. He has a red-tailed phoenix. Don't worry too much. If he didn't know about this contracted divine beast, he wouldn't have dared to put Chiyu in the Beast Park for a month. Suddenly, there seemed to be a sound coming from the spring. Elder Bo Yen immediately lowered his head to look, but only saw a shallow ripple spreading from within. He stared for a while and only retracted his gaze after confirming that there was nothing unusual. Let's begin. The three of them separated and began to repair the area they were in charge of. In the spring, several tianlei flickered quietly. A streak of red flashed across the ink-like water. A night passed in the blink of an eye. When Chu Luyue woke up, the sky was already bright. Cheong was guarding outside the cave, but the cub wasn't there. It seemed to have gone out. Hearing the movement, Cheong turned around. Chu Luyue got up and walked outside. She stretched her muscles and bones, and heard the sound of bones cracking. She looked forward with a smile on her lips. This place is still the same as before. It's a good place to cultivate. Cheong looked at her curiously, as if she was asking for her opinion. Chu Luyue smiled. Cheong, I'm going into seclusion from today onwards. I'll have to trouble you to guard me. Cheong nodded. Chu Luiyue felt much more at ease. She turned around and returned to the cave. Yes, she was preparing to break through to the peak of the 7th level. Ever since she recovered her Tianjing Yuan Meridian, her cultivation speed had increased by a lot. After coming to Lingxiao College, the rich force of heaven and earth was like adding wings to a tiger. In addition, she had experienced all these before. Hence, even if there was no one to guide her, she could still break through smoothly. Now, she only needed a relatively quiet and stable environment. Some of the magical beasts in the Beast Park were reared in the past, while some were brought back by the elders and students from outside. The number of divine beasts was not small. If Chu Luiyue was alone, she would definitely not choose to break through at this time and place. But now that Ah Qiong was here, she could be more at ease. These divine beasts were afraid of each other. Usually, they wouldn't invade each other and lived in harmony. She basically wouldn't have any problems cultivating in Ah Qiong's cave. She sat cross-legged, her shoulders drooping naturally, and her hands on her knees. Then, she closed her eyes and started to absorb the force of heaven and earth around her quickly. Streaks of energy rushed into her body. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1260. It was peaceful in the school. Elder Bo Yen kept the incident on 10,000 Wine Mountain under wraps. Other than the few of them, no one else knew about it. Everything was the same as usual. Even the news of Chu Luiyue being locked up in the Beast Park was kept under wraps by Elder Bo Yen. On one hand, the elders in charge of patrolling knew that those who were sent there must have done something. The less they said, the less mistakes they would make. On the other hand, they were not people who liked to gossip. They knew that Bo Yen and Wanjing did not want this incident to spread, so they kept quiet. Hence, even if Chu Luiyue did not appear in front of everyone, no one suspected anything. In everyone's eyes, she was busy cultivating with Rongxiu. It was normal for her to stay in Jiuheng Mountain. Days like this passed for several days in a row. Fifth brother, I heard that the mystic teachers and elders are having a class together in the afternoon. On one of the mountain peaks, Luo Shishir and Zhuoxing had finished cultivating. They wanted to visit Luo Yanlin since they had not seen him for a long time. Unfortunately, Luo Yanlin was not around, so they went to look for Luo Yanming. Luo Shishir asked if she poured tea for the other two. A smile appeared on Luo Yanming's face as she nodded. That's right. Master said that we have always been sparring with each other. After a long time, we already know each other's styles. It's boring, so we discussed with the other elders to have a class together. This matter was actually not uncommon in the Spirit Firmament Academy. Not only mystic teachers, but martial artists and celestial physician also had such activities from time to time. To put it nicely, it was a friendly exchange. To put it bluntly, it was a battle between each other. Most of the students in the school were favored by the heavens. They had some pride in their bones and were very competitive. Of course, the elders also had a similar desire to win. When the elders had a class together, they would often personally spar with each other and demonstrate to the students. This way, the students could learn a lot and increase their strength through a certain amount of competition. Cultivation, in the end, was for the sake of becoming stronger, for the sake of establishing an invincible position in battle. There were many benefits to this, so the elders and students were happy to do so. Who are the elders that have come? Luo Shishir asked curiously. Luo Yanming thought for a moment. Other than our master, there are 3 other elders. Oh, 7th madam is here too. Does that mean 4th brother will be there too? Yes. In fact, there were many people who wanted to learn from 4th brother. Luo Yanming said with envy and admiration. Luo Yanlin had always been in the top 10 on the Mystic Cultivator ranking and was considered an absolute leader among the students. There were countless people who wanted to challenge him. After all, it was possible to learn more and faster by fighting with a powerhouse than by building a car behind closed doors. I wonder when I'll be able to catch up to fourth brother, Luo Yanlin said with some emotion. Luo Shishir comforted him. Fifth brother's talent is outstanding. He will definitely be as outstanding as fourth brother in the future. Luo Yanlin shook his head. A few years ago, when fourth brother first entered the academy, he was about the same age as me. Within a month of coming to the academy, fourth brother had already made it onto the Azure Sky Roll. As for me, I'm still far from it. He usually didn't say much about this, but he actually cared a lot about it. As disciples of the Luo clan, it was inevitable that they would compare themselves to each other. Luo Shishir wanted to say something but hesitated. Luo Yanlin laughed self-deprecatingly. Shishir, you don't have to think of anything to comfort me. I know it in my heart. In our Luo clan, the most talented mystic cultivator is fourth brother. Haven't we known this since we were young? I'm only saying this because I want to work hard and cultivate so that I won't be too far behind. Luo Shishir saw his sincere expression and knew that he was speaking from the bottom of his heart, so she didn't say anything else. Father and the elders have always praised fifth brother for his open-mindedness and that he has a bright future. Luo Yanming smiled. Actually, that Lin Qifei is not bad. If there's a chance this time, I'll definitely have a good spar with her. Shuoxing patted his shoulder hard. I support you. There's just one thing. Have you seen Chuyu recently? Luo Yanming asked. That night, we agreed to have a chat when we had time. But it's been a few days, and I haven't even seen his shadow. Compared to Lin Qifei, he actually wanted to spar with Chuyu more. This was because when Elder Huafeng mentioned Lin Qifei, his reaction was not as big as when he mentioned Chuyu. This made Luo Yanming suspect that Chuyu's talent in this aspect might be even stronger than Lin Qifei's. We haven't seen him either. Luo Shishir shook her head. He might be busy cultivating with senior brother Rongxiu in Jiuheng Mountain. Anyway, I haven't heard any news about senior brother Rongxiu these few days. Probably, Luo Yanming didn't think too much about it. Then I'll wait for him to come out before I look for him. Dong! The sound of a bell rang. Luo Yanming stood up and looked in a certain direction. It's time for class. I'll be leaving first. Let's talk another day. With that, he tapped his toes and quickly left. Luo Shishir and Zhuxing didn't stay any longer and quickly left. When Luo Yanming arrived, there were already many people gathered halfway up the mountain. Obviously, these were all people who were going to class together today. Some of them looked familiar to him. They were all Elder Huafeng students, but he didn't know most of them. They were probably the other elders' students. Luo Yanming quickly looked around and found that his fourth brother, Luo Yanlin, hadn't appeared yet, so he found a few familiar friends and went to meet them. Because the elders hadn't arrived yet, the atmosphere was still relatively free and casual. Everyone stood in groups of 3 or 5 and talked about something from time to time. Of course, most of them were about today's class. This time, I want to challenge senior brother Luo Yanlin. I wonder if he will agree, I think it's better to forget it. How can our standards be enough? Isn't it important to participate? It's a rare opportunity to fight with senior brother Luo Yanlin. It's good that you know. In my opinion, instead of placing all your hopes on someone who's unlikely to agree, why don't you change to someone who's not as strong and has less requirements? Hey, isn't that Zhang Jiwan? She's here today too. Her master, Elder Dan Qing, is also one of the elders in today's class. Isn't it normal for her to come? But then again, she's not a bad opponent to challenge. I think you have an ulterior motive. Why do you care? A fair and virtuous woman is a gentleman's mate. Once, she was infatuated with senior brother Rong Xiao and ignored everyone else. But now, senior brother Rong Xiao already had a princess. She should look at the others, right? All kinds of words came, making Jiang Jiwan's already depressed mood even worse. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1261. She hadn't received any reply since she sent the letter a few days ago. Logically speaking, after such a long time, the letter should have reached the Immortal Water Mausoleum by now. But for some reason, there wasn't any movement from the other side. If it was in the past, even if her father hadn't found anything, he would have sent her a letter to comfort her. This time, it was really strange. For the past 2 days, she even started to have insomnia at night. She couldn't sleep well, so she didn't have much energy during the day and looked especially haggard. Pfft. A toad lusting after a swan's meat. Liang Xiaoxiao, who was standing at the side, also heard those words and couldn't help but curse in a low voice. How dare they dream of gaining your favor, Ziyuan? They're daydreaming. Even if you're not the princess consort of the Yuntian Tower, you're still not someone they can dream of. Don't you think so, Ziyuan? As she spoke, she looked at Jiang Jiwan. But when she looked, she realized that Jiang Jiwan didn't seem to be listening to her. Her eyes weren't focused, and her expression was dazed. It seemed like she was in a daze. Liang Xiaoxiao frowned, and a trace of dissatisfaction flashed through her heart. She was praising and comforting her out of goodwill, but she wasn't listening at all. Ziyuan, Ziyuan. Liang Xiaoxiao's expression quickly returned to normal, and she called Jiang Jiwan twice. Jiang Jiwan came back to her senses. What's wrong? Liang Xiaoxiao felt even more uncomfortable, and she smiled. Nothing, what are you thinking about? Why are you so engrossed? Jiang Jiwan lowered her eyes. I miss Daddy a little. I haven't been back for so long, I wonder how things are at the Immortal Water Mausoleum. Liang Xiaoxiao almost laughed out loud. Miss Daddy. Others might believe Jiang Jiwan's words, but she didn't take half a word seriously. They'd known each other for a long time. In the years before Jiang Jiwan entered the academy, she spent most of her time at the Immortal Water Mausoleum. She didn't even have the chance to go to the Yuntian Tower because her father kept urging her to cultivate diligently. Jiang Jiwan's father doted on her, but this doting came with conditions. If Jiang Jiwan wasn't outstanding enough, she wouldn't have had everything she had today. The Immortal Water Mausoleum, Jiang Jiwan herself said she was tired of staying there. Ever since she entered the Spirit Firmament Academy, she wished she could stay here forever, free and unrestrained. She had never said anything like missing her father and home. It was obvious that this was just a casual excuse. With the other party's attitude, Liang Xiaoxiao naturally didn't want to be snubbed. Ziyuan, Ziyuan, TSS, Ziyuan, T, Ziyuan, S, since you want to, why don't you ask your master for a leave of absence? Ziyuan, Ziyuan, Ziyuans, Ziyuan, Ziyuan, Ziyuan. If it were any other time, Jiang Ziyuan would have immediately noticed Liang Xiaoxiao's displeasure and coaxed her to ease their relationship. Zai, Ziat. I'll go after today's class is over. Liang Xiaoxiao almost laughed out of anger when she heard Jiang Jiwan's words. She lost interest in continuing the conversation. After waiting for a while, she found an excuse and went to the side to chat with the others. Jiang Jiwan's mind was a little muddle-headed, so she didn't even care about this. Not long after, the elders arrived. Other than Elder Hua Feng, Elder Dan Qing, 7th Madam, and Elder Xu Feng, there was also Elder Hua Feng. The students quieted down when they saw them arrive. They looked at them with excitement and curiosity. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that when these few elders gathered together, it was definitely a top-notch lineup. There were hundreds of elders in Lingxiao College, and almost one-third of them were mystic masters. There would always be differences in strength among cultivators. The elders were no exception. And these people were all recognized by everyone as the most powerful peak existences. The students were naturally excited. The 4 elders first formed groups of 2, and each of them carried out a battle. After the demonstration, he gave the students some time to study on their own. Finally, it was time for the students to challenge each other. This was also the segment that everyone paid the most attention to. Many students quickly chose their own opponents to spar with. There were also some people who came to look for Jiang Ji-won, but they were all rejected by her. After the 5th young man was rejected, he didn't leave like the previous people. He only smiled at Jiang Ji-won and said, "Ziyuan, we've known each other for 2 years. You should know how I feel about you. In the past, I didn't say much because I knew that your heart belonged to someone else. But now, it's impossible between you and him. Why can't you consider me?" Hearing that Rong Xiao was involved, Jiang Ji-won finally raised her head. She frowned and stared at him. She had some impression of this man. The relationship between them was still all right, but that was all. If he could speak properly, she would still be able to politely reply to him. Unfortunately, the last 2 sentences that he said just now really made her feel disgusted. She suppressed the anger in her heart and said, "If you like him, you like him. If you don't like him, you don't like him. This kind of thing can't be forced." Seeing that she was still like this, the man couldn't help but reach out to pull her. Jiang Ji-won immediately dodged, and a trace of disgust flashed across her eyes. This expression immediately made the man angry out of humiliation. He said in a deep voice, "Senior Rongxiu already has a princess. No matter what you do, can you take back the position of princess?" Jiang Ji-won also exploded and couldn't help but raise her voice, "That woman is inferior to me in every aspect. What right does she have to occupy the position of princess consort? That position was originally mine." Chapter 1262. The man's expression changed when he heard this. Jiang Ji-won also regained her senses, and her heart skipped a beat. How could she say such things in front of everyone? Even if that was what she was thinking, or even if many people were thinking the same thing, she shouldn't have said such things. The surroundings quieted down. Some of the people standing nearby looked over. Their expressions were different, and their gazes were subtle. Jiang Ji-won felt like there was a dagger at her back, and she wanted to find a hole to hide in. There were some things that others could say, but she couldn't say. Previously, she had been hinting that she was the one who had been robbed of her love. Many people didn't know much about the situation at the Yuntian Tower, so they believed her words and thought that she had been wronged. They sympathized with her and loved her. But if she said it out loud, the nature of the situation would change completely. Wasn't she telling everyone that she had always regarded the position of princess consort as her own? I didn't mean that. Jiang Ji-won panicked and wanted to explain. But after stammering for a long time, she couldn't come up with a reasonable excuse. The more nervous she was, the more she didn't know how to salvage the situation. Senior Jiang Ji-won. Right at this moment, an indifferent and cold voice sounded out, breaking this stiff and cold atmosphere. Jiang Ji-won immediately turned her head and saw that the person who spoke was a young man who looked about 20 years old. He was wearing a green robe, and he was tall and handsome. Just by standing there, he looked like an ink painting. His eyes were much lighter than the average person's, and it made him look more distant. "You are Lin Qifei." Jiang Ji-won remembered that she had seen this face before. If she remembered correctly, this person was the first one to enter the Master Roll of Honor among the new students. At the same time, He was the young master of the Lin family at Grotto Heaven Cliff. Back then, Chu Luiyue disguised himself and went to the Yuntian Tower with them. Thinking of this, Jiang Ziyuan felt a little annoyed in her heart. She loathed everything related to that woman. Why are you looking for me? Jiang Jiwan's tone was obviously much colder. Lin Qifei didn't seem to mind and smiled. There is one thing. I heard that Senior Martial Sister Jiang Jiwan's cultivation as a mystic cultivator is quite outstanding. Qifei would like to ask for guidance. Is that possible? So it was because of this. Jiang Jiwan sneered in her heart, but on the surface, she looked indifferent. Junior brother Lin, you've just ascended to the azure sky role, so it's inevitable that you're young and impetuous. It was understandable that he wanted to find someone to challenge. However, you have to carefully choose your candidates. There are many mystic cultivators present who can spar with you. You don't have to waste your time with me. These words sounded polite on the surface, but in reality, they were mocking Lin Qifei for not being strong enough and overestimating himself. As long as one had a temper, it was inevitable that they would get angry. However, Lin Qifei's expression was normal when he heard this, as if he didn't care. Senior Martial Sister Jiang Jiwan is right. People who are weak indeed shouldn't try to compete with people who are much stronger than them. Otherwise, the one who will be humiliated and injured in the end will be themselves. Jiang Jiwan's expression changed. This was blatantly scolding her. Even if one used their toes to think, they would know that Lin Qifei was hinting at what had happened to the people of Cloud Heaven Tower that day. She had lost to that Chu Luiyue several times in a row. What are you trying to say? Jiang Jiwan had lost her patience. Lin Qifei smiled. What I wanted to say was what I said just now. Did Senior Martial Sister Jiang Jiwan not hear me clearly? He raised his chin slightly, and his eyes gradually turned cold. I wanted to ask Senior Martial Sister Jiang Jiwan to spar with me, but Senior Martial Sister Jiang didn't seem willing to agree. However, I don't think the gap between me and Senior Martial Sister Jiang is as big as you think. Jiang Jiwan was so angry that she laughed. What did you say? Did he mean that she was arrogant and conceited? Junior Martial Brother Lin, do you think that you're invincible just because you're on the Azure Cloud roll? Don't forget that there are dozens of people between you and me in that regard. At this moment, the commotion had attracted the attention of many people. Most people thought that Lin Qifei was a little arrogant. He was very outstanding, but Jiang Jiwan had been in the academy for several years, and she was publicly recognized as one of the best. She was ranked at the top of the Azure Cloud roll. He actually said that. Wasn't he thinking too highly of himself? However, Lin Qifei didn't seem to care about the opinions of the people around him. He looked at Jiang Jiwan and said, Senior Martial Sister Jiang, if you don't believe me, you can give it a try. This was a challenge that couldn't be any more direct. No, it could be said that he was provoking her. Are you sure? Jiang Jiwan sized up Lin Qifei and narrowed her eyes. Junior Martial Brother Lin, it's good to be bold, but sometimes, if you don't know how to restrain yourself, you'll bring trouble to yourself. I'll give you one last piece of advice, you're on your own. Lin Qifei glanced at her, and the corners of his mouth hooked up without a smile. Thank you for your advice, Senior Martial Sister Jiang Jiwan. My courage is really nothing compared to yours. He spoke slowly, enunciating each and every word clearly. After all, you even dared to distort the truth in front of so many people. What do I not dare to do? Jiang Jiwan's heart sank. She tried to control her anger and forced a smile. Junior Martial Brother Lin, what do you mean by that? I don't understand. The position of the princess consort is decided through a competition. That day, you lost from the beginning to the end, but you didn't know that the princess consort is inferior to you in every aspect. Senior Marshal Sister Jiang Ji-won, how did you say that? With every word Lin Chi-fei said, Jiang Ji-won's face turned paler. By the end, her face was pale and her body was trembling. You. She opened her mouth, but couldn't say anything to refute him. Because what Lin Chi-fei said was true. She lost to Chu Luyue in more than one aspect. Seeing that Jiang Ji-won didn't refute him, the crowd gradually realized something and looked at each other. Most of them didn't know much about what happened at the Yuntian Tower. Occasionally, they heard some news, but it was mostly from Jiang Ji-won and the others. Why was Lin Chi-fei's words so different from what Jiang Ji-won said before? Senior Marshal Sister Jiang Ji-won. Since you lost, you can also say that you won. Then. Even if I lose, it shouldn't be a big problem, right? Lin Chi-fei asked. Why don't we have a competition to see who will win? Beast Park. Everything was calm. Elder Yu looked in a certain direction and frowned in confusion. It has been a few days, why is there still no news from Chu Yu's side? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1263. He originally thought that it would be good enough if Chu Yu could survive one night. Who knew that Chu Yu had not sent out any signal for help until now? And from the situation of the Xian formation in the Beast Park, he was indeed fine and seemed to be staying in one place all the time. Could it be that he found an excellent hiding place? Elder Yu thought to himself. But the mythical beasts in the Beast Park were not so good-tempered. For some reason, the mythical beasts did not cause any trouble until today. He thought for a while and decided to wait a little longer. If Chu Yu could really survive a month in here, then he would really have a whole new level of respect for Chu Yu. Chu Luyue, who was in the cave, had almost forgotten about the passage of time. The surrounding force of heaven and earth surged into her body and flowed through her limbs and bones before finally gathering in her dantian. As the surrounding force of heaven and earth increased, the 7 lines on the water droplet became brighter and brighter. But sensing this movement, Chu Luyue was unable to relax. Because, according to her original calculations, she should have broken through a few days ago. But for some reason, all kinds of force of heaven and earth were circulating in her dantian, and there was no movement until today. Chu Luyue was puzzled. Breaking through to the peak of rank 7 was not a difficult thing for her. According to her past experience, she would be able to break through in less than a day. But now, the situation was developing in an unknown direction. After thinking for a while, Chu Luyue decided to wait patiently and continued to devour the surrounding force of heaven and earth. After some time, finally, there was a slight fluctuation in her dantian. Then, a vigorous force surged out from within. This force had a trace of a familiar aura. Chu Luyue was stunned for a while before she realized that this force seemed to be the force of heaven and earth that she had inherited from Taizu of the northern underworld. Ever since she had devoured all of this force of heaven and earth, it had quietly entered the water droplet and did not cause any movement. Chu Luyue did not expect that this force of heaven and earth would suddenly surge out at this moment. After a long period of nourishment and refinement in the water droplet, this force of heaven and earth had become extremely pure. In an instant, it surged towards Chu Luyue's body. Chu Luyue was stunned. Then, she felt waves of piercing pain all over her body. She was startled, but she immediately understood something. This force of heaven and earth was going to help her break through to rank 8. After realizing this, Chu Luyue made a prompt decision and began to guide the force of heaven and earth. Although she did not know why this happened, it was a rare opportunity. Since she could directly break through to rank 8, why not give it a try? Under Chu Luyue's intentional control, the originally messy and chaotic force started to flow into her Yuan meridian in an orderly manner. The Tianjing Yuan meridian's endurance was much stronger than the Daijing Yuan meridians. Hence, after the initial piercing pain, Chu Liuyue's body quickly adapted to the strong impact. During this process, some of the power had also silently fused into her flesh and bones. The force of heaven and earth continued to surge out of the water droplet. After all, it was the force of heaven and earth left behind by a god-rank powerhouse. Its power could not be underestimated. This force of heaven and earth was stored in the water droplet. Chu Liyue had never paid much attention to it. It was only now that she began to devour this force of heaven and earth that she realized how terrifying it was. As she continued to absorb this force of heaven and earth into her body, her aura began to strengthen rapidly. If anyone else was here, they would be shocked to see this scene. Because Chu Liyue's speed of devouring the force of heaven and earth was too shocking. When ordinary cultivators tried to break through to rank 8, they would need to make sufficient preparations. To put it bluntly, they had to accumulate enough force of heaven and earth to break through to rank 8. For a martial artist, the higher they broke through, the more experience they needed. In fact, the force of heaven and earth that Chu Liyue was mobilizing had far exceeded that of ordinary cultivators. Chu Liyue also realized this point, so she could only continue to circulate the force of heaven and earth. She had long known that when the water droplet in her body wanted to break through, she would need to spend more force than others. Early stage to middle stage to peak, at least they were at the same stage, so it was not that difficult. However, every time he advanced in rank, the situation would become very troublesome. Not to mention other things, just the last time she broke through to rank 7, she had spent a lot of effort. She did not expect that the endless force of heaven and earth that she devoured would come in handy during this breakthrough. Crack! A soft sound was heard. The 7th line on the water droplet finally became as bright as the other lines. However, this was only the beginning. Chu Liyue held her breath and did not dare to be careless. She continued to increase her strength and urged the force of heaven and earth to circulate. Boom! A loud sound suddenly came from the sky. Dark clouds gathered and the wind howled. The sky quickly darkened. Qiong, who was guarding the cave entrance, looked up and then turned back as if she sensed something. Is she going to break through consecutively? At the same time, Elder Yu, who was a few mountains away, heard the commotion and was also very surprised. He frowned slightly. Why is the sky turning dark so quickly? No. Suddenly, his expression changed. That kid is going to break through. He tapped the tip of his foot and immediately flew in that direction. Breaking through in the Beast Park. Is this kid courting death? Digression, midnight has begun. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1264. It was dark between heaven and earth. The wind swept the clouds away and whistled past. Such a situation caused the magical beasts in the Beast Park to become restless. Some of them even started to move toward the mountain where Chu Liyue was. The wind was chilling, and the air was cold. However, Chu Liyue, who was preparing to break through in the cave, was unaware of all this. After breaking through to the peak of level 7, Chu Liyue did not stop at all. She continued to devour the surrounding energy of heaven and earth. Then, it merged with the energy that surged out from the water droplets in her body. Finally, it seeped into every inch of her muscles, blood, and bones. Her body was like a black hole. No matter how much energy entered her body, she could easily accommodate it. Of course, there were also benefits after breaking through to the peak of level 7. The speed at which she circulated her energy became faster. Chu Liyue closed her eyes tightly. Her mind was clear. There was only one thought in her mind, to break through to level 8. Outside the cave, Qiong, who was in charge of guarding the cave, scratched the ground uneasily. It looked at the surroundings. It was already evening. In addition, Chu Luiyue was about to break through. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, and the light was even dimmer. Many things could not be seen clearly. As far as the eye could see, it could only see the dark, undulating mountain range. Some soft sounds came from all directions. A hint of alertness flashed across Ah Cheong's eyes. When Elder Yu Yu arrived, the first thing he saw was such a scene. A huge adult steel spine beast was standing in front of a cave. It was majestic and vigilant. Its reaction was extremely sensitive. The moment Elder Yu Yu arrived, it sensed his aura and looked up. Elder Yu Yu's heart skipped a beat. This steel spine beast was looking at him with eyes full of hostility and warning. It was as if it would fight to the death if he took another step forward. Elder Yu Yu frowned. This steel spine beast. What's wrong with it? He had been in the beast park for quite some time. The magical beasts here were more or less familiar with him. Under normal circumstances, both parties were more polite when they met. It was rare for them to quarrel. But this time, this steel spine beast took such a stance when it saw him. It was really strange. It looked as if it was protecting its cub, but the commotion came from inside the cave. Logically speaking, the one inside should be Chu Yu. Elder Yu Yu was puzzled, but he did not dare to act rashly. The demonic beasts in the beast park were usually quite restrained. However, they were not contracted. The pride and wildness in their bones determined that they were definitely not easy to deal with. At this moment, some strange noises came from the surroundings. Elder Yu Yu looked serious. There were quite a few magical beasts in the forest, and they were all approaching this place. Their target was the cave. This made him even more certain of his guess. Chu Yu must be in the cave, preparing to break through. When cultivators were breaking through, they would often draw upon the energy of heaven and earth. However, in the beast park, there were a large number of high-level magical beasts and even mythical beasts. They had a natural thirst for power. Under normal circumstances, they would restrain themselves. But magical beasts who were preparing to break through could activate a large amount of energy. Unfortunately, they were very weak now. Therefore, in the eyes of the magical beasts, they became a piece of fat meat. At this time, many magical beasts would fight for this piece of fat meat. Chu Yu breaking through in this place at this time, wasn't this putting himself in danger? Elder Yu Yu was anxious. But at the same time, the steel spine beast's reaction made him even more puzzled. Could it be, it was protecting Chu Yu? As soon as this thought flashed through his mind, Elder Yu Yu subconsciously shook his head. How could it be? Adult steel spine beasts were magical beasts. They were ruthless, cold, and merciless. They were especially wary of humans. He had stayed in the beast park for so long. It was difficult for him to even get close to them. Not to mention Chu Yu, who had just arrived a few days ago. But looking at the steel spine beast, other than this, he could not think of any other explanation. After thinking about it, Elder Yu Yu decided to wait and see. If something really happened, it would not be too late for him to take action. The people outside did not know about the undercurrent in the beast park. Halfway up the mountain, Lin Qifei's words left Jiang Jiwan with no way out. Countless pairs of eyes looked over. Their gazes were different. Jiang Jiwan's heart was filled with resentment toward Lin Qifei. He did it on purpose. Okay. I promise you. Jiang Jiwan raised her voice. Lin Qifei smiled. Then I'll have to trouble you, senior sister Jiang Jiwan. After saying that, the two of them prepared to start the battle. The onlookers looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with unconcealable excitement and curiosity. Elder Hua Feng and the others also noticed the situation here and looked over. Shu Feng, your new disciple is quite arrogant. Elder Dan Qing said with an indifferent expression. You've only been in the academy for less than 3 months, yet you already have such courage. Your courage is truly commendable. How could Elder Shu Feng not hear the sarcasm and disdain in those words? Instead, he was not angry. Instead, he laughed. Ha! Although Ji Fei usually doesn't talk much, he is indeed a person with a temperament. If you want to become strong, you have to have the courage to challenge the strong, right? However, this child has always been steady. He usually won't do things that he isn't sure of. Today's battle. Actually, I'm also very curious about who will win. Elder Dan Qing's face darkened. He sneered in his heart. Lin Qifei had a domineering personality. Now, even Shu Feng had become like this. How could a brat who had just entered the Azure Cloud role be a match for Jiang Jiwan? He flicked his sleeves and said coldly, "It's good for young people to suffer more and suffer more setbacks." Elder Shu Feng raised his eyebrows and pretended not to hear anything. He changed the topic. Actually, that's not important. After all, this is just a small competition. The most important thing is for everyone to learn from each other and improve their strength. On the other hand, Jiang Jiwan. Dan Qing, I saw that she has been in a daze today. She doesn't seem to be in a good state. Elder Dan Qing frowned. In fact, he had noticed this as well. Based on his understanding of Jiang Jiwan, she should have encountered some trouble. Coupled with what Lin Qifei had said just now, her expression looked even worse. Actually, everyone has times when they are haggard and tired. This is normal. But no matter what, there are some things that shouldn't be said carelessly. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1265. Elder Danqing's heart seemed to be clenched by something. He turned his head and looked at Elder Shu Feng with a frown. Rongxiu isn't here, but that doesn't mean he didn't hear those words. Elder Shu Feng didn't seem to notice the warning in the other party's eyes as he spoke leisurely. That princess consort was personally chosen by Rongxiu, which is enough to show his feelings. Moreover, when Rongxiu returned to the academy, he admitted that the princess consort was the person he truly loved. If he knew that Jiang Jiwan had slandered that princess consort in front of so many people and even claimed that the position of princess consort was hers. With his personality, he wouldn't let this matter go so easily. Dan Qing, what do you think? Elder Danqing's expression changed slightly. Rongxiu was tough and ruthless. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to ascend to the position of the Holy Sun and take charge of the Yuntian Tower in just a few years. If he really wanted to pursue this matter, he was afraid that Jiang Ziyuan's end would not be any better. In fact, in the past few years, Jiang Jiwan had deliberately made her relationship with Rongxiu sound very ambiguous. It wasn't the first time that outsiders misunderstood. However, Rongxiu was no longer in the academy at that time, so he naturally didn't care. However, it was different now. Rongxiu was here, and if he wanted to know anything, he would definitely know everything. Elder Danqing's heart slowly sank. Others might not know, but as Jiang Jiwan's master, he knew best what Rongxiu's attitude toward her. What childhood sweethearts, what elders' agreement, in fact, it was all just Jiang Jiwan's wishful thinking. Now, the princess consort was living well in the Yuntian Tower. How could she allow others to slander her? I will deal with this matter. Elder Danqing said in a low voice. I won't trouble others to teach my own student. Elder Shu Feng knew that he had taken it seriously, so he smiled and didn't say anything else. Although Danqing was stubborn and had seen many storms, his mind was still clear. Unfortunately, Jiang Jiwan didn't have that brain. Rong Xiao was in the academy, and she dared to say such things in front of so many people. Elder Xu Feng stroked his beard. I'm afraid Jiang Ziyuan's future days won't be easy. Lin Qifei and Jiang Jiwan were facing each other. Between the two and Rong Xiao was a floating chessboard. The two of them took turns to make their moves. In the beginning, Rong Xiao zeshed, but gradually, she realized that something was wrong with the situation. Every time she took a step, Lin Qifei would quickly follow, and the position of his piece was always accurate. He didn't seem to need any time to react, and his movements were extremely agile. In the beginning, Jiang Jiwan could still deceive herself, comforting herself that it was just the beginning and the game hadn't started yet. Lin Qifei had a lot of room to play, which was why he could play so smoothly. However, as time passed, more and more pieces appeared on the chessboard, and the situation became more and more complicated. Even Jiang Jiwan had to think twice before placing a piece. But Lin Qifei didn't seem to be affected at all, and was still as sharp as before. At this point, Jiang Jiwan finally felt a little powerless. She quickly looked up, but saw that Lin Qifei's expression was as calm as ever. Sensing her gaze, Lin Qifei smiled and nodded at her. Jiang Jiwan gritted her teeth. From her point of view, Lin Qifei's reaction was clearly a provocation. However, no matter how upset she was, she couldn't reverse the current situation. She became more and more anxious, and cold sweat started to form on her forehead. At this time, the onlookers had also noticed that something was wrong. They secretly exchanged meaningful glances with each other. They were all Xian masters, so of course, they could see that something was fishy. Looking at the current situation, it was obvious that Jiang Jiwan was at a disadvantage. I didn't expect Lin Qifei to be so strong. He couldn't have been hiding his strength before, right? I think it's most likely so. You have to know that Jiang Jiwan's ranking on the Azure Cloud roll is much higher than his. But looking at the situation, Lin Qifei is actually half a head above her. If Jiang Jiwan really loses, wouldn't she lose all her face? The strong are respected. If she can't do it, someone will replace her sooner or later. I think she hasn't put much effort into her cultivation, so it's normal for her to be overtaken. I think so too. Didn't Lin Qifei just say that the princess consort of the Yuntian Tower actually won against her fair and square? That's not what she said before. If you lose, can you announce it to the others with great fanfare? Actually, I felt that something was wrong from the start. Rong Xiao is the holy son of the Yuntian Tower. How noble is his status? How could he casually marry an ordinary girl as his princess consort? Who knows how much of what Jiang Jiwan said is true and how much of it is false? Although the person who spoke had tried to lower his voice, everyone present was not weak, so they could more or less hear it. Including Jiang Jiwan. She felt even more sullen in her heart, but at this time, she couldn't even say a word of rebuttal. Because what they said was the truth. When everyone didn't know the truth, she might still be able to speak ambiguously. But once they understood, she couldn't continue like that. Because when the truth came out, the liar would often be the most embarrassed. Paw! Suddenly, a sound came from the chessboard. Jiang Jiwan came back to her senses and looked over, but was shocked to find that Lin Qifei's move had cut off her path. Lin Qifei said indifferently. Senior sister Jiang Jiwan, you lost. These few casual words were like a heavy stone that ruthlessly smashed into Jiang Ziyuan's heart. Her mind went blank for a moment, and she almost couldn't believe everything in front of her. She was just distracted for a moment. How did it become like this? However, on the chessboard, she was indeed completely cut. She really lost. This realization made Jiang Jiwan's legs go weak, and she almost fell to the ground. The young man who wanted to challenge her before quickly stepped forward to support her. Ziyuan, are you all right? Jiang Ji-won pushed him away, as if she was afraid of being contaminated by something dirty. The young man's expression darkened, and he silently retreated. Lin Qifei raised his eyebrows slightly. Senior Sister Jiang Ji-won, it seems that your strength has it increased since you returned from the Yuntian Tower. These words were like a slap to Jiang Ji-won's face. She stared at the chessboard, took a deep breath, and suppressed the anger in her heart with great difficulty. I've been neglecting my cultivation recently. Thank you, junior brother Lin, for your correction. After saying that, she turned around and walked in the direction of the elders. Elder Danqing took a step forward with some worry. Ziyuan, Master, I want to take a leave of absence. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1266. Jiang Ziyuan didn't wait for Elder Danqing to finish speaking and spoke first. Junior brother Lin is right. I've been in a bad state recently, so I want to go home for a while and adjust my condition before coming back. Elder Danqing did not expect her to have such a plan and was slightly stunned. Ziyuan, if you have any difficulties, feel free to tell me. If there's anything I can help you with, I'll do my best. Although Jiang Ji-won was a little stubborn, she was still his favorite student for several years, so Elder Danqing did not want to be too harsh on her. In the past few years, he had spent a lot of effort on Jiang Ji-won. He once thought that even if she could not become a top existence like Rong Xiu, she would be better than most people. Seeing her like this, he felt sorry for her. Jiang Ji-won shook her head and forced a smile. Thank you for your kindness, Master. But this time, I've disappointed you. It's all my fault. But don't worry, I'll come back as soon as possible after going home to adjust. Seeing that she had made up her mind, Elder Danqing knew that it was useless to persuade her anymore, so he could only nod and agree. All right. Whenever you want to come back, I'll be waiting for you. Today, she had made a serious slip of the tongue in front of everyone and lost to Lin Qifei. It would be good for her to leave for a while. It would not be too late for her to come back after the storm subsided. Jiang Ji-won smiled gratefully. Thank you, Master. That student will take her leave today. Elder Danqing sighed inwardly and nodded. Only then did Jiang Ji-won turn around and leave. Everyone looked at each other. She's leaving just like that. The class isn't over yet, she already lost to Lin Qifei in the competition, so why would she care about class? If I were her, I would leave too. Could it be that she can't afford to lose? It's good to have a background. She can leave and come back whenever she wants. She can do whatever she wants. Some very unpleasant words entered Jiang Ji-won's ears. She clenched her fists tightly in her sleeves and tried hard to control her expression. She stopped in front of Lin Qifei. Lin Qifei seemed to sense something and looked up. Jiang Ziyuan suddenly smiled, but the corners of her eyes and the tips of her eyebrows were still cold. Junior brother Lin, I didn't expect you to be so protective of her. You're even willing to stand up for her. If she knew about this, she would definitely be very touched, right? Her tone was very sincere, as if she was really just praising Lin Qifei. However, if one thought about it for a moment, one would feel that something was wrong. There seemed to be some ambiguity in his words. Lin Qifei's eyelids were slightly raised. In his clear pupils, there was a hint of a mocking smile. Cave Heaven Cliff is one of the 28 divisions of the Yuntian Tower. It is our duty to protect the princess. I wonder how Senior Marshal Brother Rong Xiu would react if he knew what Senior Marshal Sister Jiang Ji-won did today. Jiang Ji-won's expression changed. You. This is Lingshao College, not the Immortal Water Mausoleum. Senior Marshal Sister Jiang Ji-won, you should be more careful with your words and actions in the future. Jiang Ji-won was so angry that she laughed. All right. Junior brother Lin, I'll come back another day to challenge you. After saying that, she lifted her feet and left quickly. She couldn't do anything to Lin Qifei in the school, but once she left, Cave Heaven Cliff would be at the mercy of the Immortal Water Mausoleum. When she returned, she would definitely teach them a lesson. After Jiang Ji-won left, the crowd fell silent for a while, then quickly returned to normal. One Jiang Ji-won was not enough for them to waste so much time and energy. The students of Lingxiao College all understood that no matter what, being strong was the most important thing. The sparring matches between the people continued. However, this time, there were clearly fewer people who wanted to challenge Lin Qifei. They had thought that he was a newcomer, but who knew that he was actually a hidden talent? Now, whoever wanted to challenge him would have to think twice about it. After some hesitation, the person who fought Lin Qifei in the end was Luo Yanming. Unsurprisingly, Luo Yanming was also defeated after a bitter battle. At this time, everyone realized that Lin Qifei's talent was even stronger than they had expected. Elder Hua Feng couldn't help but smack his lips. This Lin Qifei wasn't very conspicuous before, but I didn't expect him to be so outstanding. Shu Feng, you've made a fortune this time. Elder Shu Feng was also very happy. He smiled so much that the wrinkles on his face trembled. Hee. Of course. Among the new students in the past few months, no one would dare to say that he was the second most talented Xian master among them. The most important thing was that his personality was very calm, so he didn't need to worry about him at all. Elder Hua Feng raised his eyebrows. That's not. Before he could finish speaking, he thought for a moment and swallowed the rest of his words. Elder Shu Feng asked. What did you say? Elder Hua Feng smiled and shook his head. Nothing. Teach this disciple well. Don't let him go astray. Elder Shu Feng laughed loudly. How can I be so picky? Don't worry. This disciple of mine is very honest and dutiful. Moreover, he has always been very interested in teleportation formations and has been studying this recently. By the way, aren't you very good at this too? When you have time, why don't you give him some pointers? Elder Hua Feng laughed heartily and naturally agreed. In the Beast Park. Night fell. The wind and clouds surged between heaven and earth. Elder Yu stood in mid-air and stared at the mountain peak below, waiting to make a move at any time. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1267. Suddenly, a sharp and painful cry resounded through the forest. Elder Yu looked over and vaguely saw a steelback beast cub at the foot of the mountain. It was running back, stumbling along the way. He recognized at a glance that this was the baby steel spine beast that had just been born not long ago. It seemed to be injured as it limped while running. A line of blood vaguely appeared behind it. Elder Yu went closer and took a closer look. He saw that there was a bloody hole in one of the baby's hind legs. It looked like some ferocious beast had forcefully bitten off a large piece of flesh. The white bones could almost be seen. Elder Yu was shocked. The steel spine beast had rough skin and thick flesh. Among the magical beasts in the Beast Park, its physical strength could definitely be ranked in the top 3. To be able to injure it to such an extent, it was definitely not an ordinary magical beast. From the looks of it, it was most likely, but these magical beasts usually stayed out of each other's way. Why would they suddenly start fighting? Needless to say, this was still a baby. Injuring it would undoubtedly offend the adult steel spine beast. This time, it would probably be a fight to the death. Just as Elder Yu was thinking about these questions, the baby steel spine beast had already started running up the mountain peak. As it ran, it constantly let out sorrowful cries for help. Ah Cheong, who was in charge of guarding the entrance of the cave, heard this familiar sound and immediately looked down the mountain. Their night vision was extremely strong. Even though the sky was already dark, Cheong was still able to see the scene below very quickly. A strong smell of blood assaulted them. Ah Cheong's expression changed. Only then did she see the wound on her baby's leg. Swoosh! The steel needles on its back instantly stood up. A trace of biting cold murderous intent flashed across its eyes. Roar! It angrily raised its head and let out an angry roar. This roar was vigorous and powerful, and it instantly spread mightily through the forest. All the magical beasts knew that this was a warning. Hearing its mother's voice, the baby steel-spine beast felt much more at ease. But very quickly, it was shocked to discover that the magical beast chasing after it did not stop. In fact, its speed seemed to be even faster. Swoosh! The one behind suddenly pounced. The cub hurriedly dodged and almost stumbled to the ground. During this process, its body fell onto a broken piece of wood, and a thick branch that stretched out diagonally stabbed into its wound. Roar! The steelback beast cub let out a pained hiss. But at this moment, it couldn't care less. It struggled to get up and continued to run up the mountain. Go home. As long as he returned to his mother's side, he would be safe. With that thought in mind, it ran back with all its might. Ah Cheong saw all of this. There seemed to be two balls of fire burning in its eyes, as if it wanted to burn everything in front of it to ashes. It lifted its foot and was about to rush over when it suddenly remembered that Chu Luiyue was still cultivating in the cave behind it, preparing to break through. If it left now, Chu Luiyue would be completely exposed to danger. It knew all too well what kind of trouble a human would attract when he broke through in the beast park. Ah Cheong was struggling in her heart. In front of him was his only bloodline, and behind him was his savior. It was almost unable to make a decision. Roar! At the foot of the mountain, another cry of pain was heard. It was just that this voice was clearly much weaker than it had been at the beginning. It didn't need to look to know that its child was definitely in danger now. Its innate maternal instinct made it want to abandon everything in front of it and rush over immediately. But a trace of obsession in the depths of its heart nailed it to the ground. Finally, it lifted its leg and stomped down heavily. Boom! With this stomp, almost half of the mountain began to shake and shake. Cracks began to spread from its feet to the ground. The terrifying pressure was like a gust of wind, surging towards the ground. Before Chu Luiyue broke through, it couldn't leave this place. Normally, each family of magical beasts occupied their own territory and didn't interfere with each other. Once there was any action that crossed the boundary, they would receive warnings and threats. Most of the time, such warnings were effective. This was because in the beast park, there was not a single magical beast that could dominate the entire beast park. Everyone kept each other in check, forming a subtle balance. But now, this balance was broken. The other party had ignored Cheong's repeated warnings and was going to continue attacking no matter what. Other than accepting the challenge, there was no other way. But Cheong couldn't leave at all, so how could it fight? Its cub's cries gradually weakened. Cheong looked down and could clearly see that its speed had slowed down a lot, and its body was already dripping with blood. Obviously, it couldn't hold on for much longer. There seemed to be a fire burning in its heart, and a trace of blood appeared in its eyes. Roar! This cry was sorrowful and almost crazy. But it still guarded the entrance of the cave and didn't move an inch. How could this be? Not far away, Elder Yu saw this scene and was shocked. What was that adult steel spine beast thinking? The one at the foot of the mountain that was on the verge of death was its cub. At this time, shouldn't it immediately rush over and protect it with all its might? Why was it still guarding the entrance of the cave without moving until now? Was the one in the cave really Chu-Yu? Elder Yu couldn't understand. Could it be that to it, Chu-Yu was more important than its bloodline? If he didn't see it with his own eyes, he wouldn't dare to believe that such a thing would happen. If this matter were to spread, others would probably think that he was joking. He frowned and suddenly thought of the rumors related to Chu-Yu. Each and every one of them was unbelievable. Originally, he didn't take Chu-Yu too seriously and only thought that he was a young boy who loved to play around. No matter what, he was just a little more talented and lucky. But now he realized that he was wrong. To be able to make an adult steel spine beast willingly give up its bloodline, what exactly did Chu-Yu do in the beast park these few days? Actually, Chu-Luyue didn't do anything. She was just cultivating and planning to break through to rank 8 warrior. A few days had passed, and she maintained the same posture. While devouring the surrounding energy of heaven and earth, she completely merged the power stored in the water droplet with herself. Even she was shocked by the formation needed for this breakthrough. Because this had long surpassed the scale of her breakthrough to rank 8 warrior in her previous life. But from the beginning to the end, she had done her best. Vaguely, she felt an invisible barrier. In her heart, she was certain, that was the threshold of rank 8 warrior. She held her breath, gathered her strength, and charged toward the barrier. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1268. Rumble. A huge energy wave suddenly came out from the cave. Elder Yu's heart skipped a beat. This commotion, was Chu-Yu really just breaking through to the 8th stage? He had cultivated for many years and had seen many cultivators trying to break through this threshold. There was no lack of outstanding geniuses among them. However, he had never seen anyone who could cause such a huge wave. Even when some cultivators broke through to the 9th stage, there wouldn't be such a huge commotion. Elder Yu clenched his fists tightly and had the urge to scold someone. Before coming in, he had clearly told Chu-Yu to honestly tell him his strength. At that time, he thought that he had already said it, but he didn't expect that there was still something hidden. When this matter was over, he would definitely teach Chu-Yu a lesson. Roar! A loud and excited roar suddenly came from another mountain peak not far away. This sound was like a mysterious mechanism had been opened in an instant. That unknown and terrifying flood had already poured down before anyone could react. Screech dash, in another direction, another sharp screech rang out. Following that, all kinds of sounds came from all directions. Those magical beasts that had quietly arrived and had been waiting quietly finally couldn't hold back and bared their fangs. The roars that rose and fell were filled with endless greed and lust. Although the killing had yet to truly begin, the air was already filled with a thick smell of blood. Elder Yu's back suddenly broke out in cold sweat. The number of magical beasts that had been lured over this time was much more than what he had expected. Under the gloomy sky, figures filled with murderous intent walked out from the lofty mountains and lofty ridges, heading towards the mountain peak in the middle. Elder Yu lowered his head to take a look and his scalp went numb. There were simply too many of them. The commotion caused by Chu-Yu's breakthrough was too big. Other than the magical beasts nearby, even some of the magical beasts in the distance sensed the commotion and rushed over. If he didn't think of a way to solve it in time, the number of magical beasts that gathered here would only increase. Elder Yu's body tensed up as his mind raced, hoping to find a solution as soon as possible. But how could it be so easy? Now, generally speaking, there were only two directions. One of them forcefully interrupted Chu-Yu's breakthrough and quickly brought him away from this place. The other was to drive away all these magical beasts and save Chu-Yu from danger. But no matter which one it was, it sounded impossible. When a cultivator wanted to break through, they needed an absolutely stable environment. Any interference could cause him to fail. In the worst-case scenario, it could cause him to never be able to cross this shackle again. If he did this, what if he ruined Chuyu? Not to mention, Chuyu still had an adult steel spine beast guarding him. A steel spine beast that was willing to give up its own cubs in order to protect him. Once it sensed that someone was approaching, what kind of power would it erupt with? Just thinking about it was frightening. As for the second method, Elder Yu admitted that he didn't have this ability. Even if he had been patrolling this area all year round, he would definitely not be a match for so many magical beasts. In a moment of desperation, Elder Yu finally took out his green jade token and sent out a distress signal. Chuyu is in danger, help him. It was already night time. Elder Bo Yen and the others arrived at Thousand Wine Mountain and planned to continue repairing it. But just as he stood still, he suddenly sensed something and his expression changed. Elder Ouyang and Elder Bo Yen looked at him strangely and asked, "What's wrong?" Elder Bo Yen didn't say anything and directly took out his green jade token. A line of words slowly appeared. Elder Bo Yen's pupils shrank. Sensing the change in his aura, Elder Ouyang and Elder Bo Yen looked at each other and felt uneasy. "I have something to do, I have to leave first." Elder Bo Yen hurriedly said and was about to turn and leave. "Hey, what's going on?" Elder Ouyang couldn't help but ask. They rarely saw such an expression on Elder Bo Yan's face. Elder Bo Yen paused and said, "There's a problem at the Beast Park. I'll go take a look first." Beast Park. Doesn't that mean that something happened to Chuyu? But Yu and the others have been. Before Elder Ouyang could finish his sentence, he suddenly fell silent. This news obviously came from those few people. It could be seen that the matter was no longer within their control. "Let's go together." Shang Yusin made a prompt decision. Elder Bo Yen shook his head. "You guys can continue to stay here. After all, there's a great Xian formation at the Beast Park. Yu and the others are also there. Nothing should happen for a while. However, if you guys follow me, you'll be too big of a target and attract too much attention." Only a few of them knew that Chuyu was locked up in the Beast Park. If this news spread, their previous efforts would be wasted. Elder Ouyang and Elder Bo Yen looked at each other and could only agree. "If there's any problem, we'll rush over immediately." Elder Bo Yen nodded. With a tap of his foot, he quickly left. Splash! The sound of water suddenly came from the mouth of the spring. Elder Ouyang instantly became alert. "What's the situation?" Shang Yusin quickly went forward and carefully checked the surroundings. He heaved a sigh of relief. "Nothing, it seems like a stone at the side fell into the spring." Elder Ouyang was skeptical and went over to take a look personally. He was only relieved after that. It's good that nothing happened. We've already reached such a critical juncture. We can't afford to make any more mistakes. At the same time, Elder Wanjing, who was arranging the medicinal herbs in his residence, also received Elder Yuyu's message. When he saw the line of words on the green jade token, he was so shocked that he stood up abruptly and flipped the table over. The dozens of precious medicinal herbs that were neatly arranged on the table all fell to the ground and mixed together. However, Elder Wanjing couldn't care less about this. He took off and left, should have stayed there and not left. In the blink of an eye, his figure disappeared into the night outside the door. Boom! Another wave of energy spread out from the cave. At this moment, the Xian formation barrier in the sky suddenly flickered. Elder Yu quickly flew up, and with a wave of his sleeve, an opening appeared on the profound formation. A figure quickly rushed in. It was Elder Bo Yen. "How's Chuyu?" Elder Bo Yen couldn't wait to ask Elder Yu when he saw him. Elder Yu didn't have time to answer before he saw another person flying over. Disciple. Disciple. Elder Wanjing shouted anxiously. After entering, he saw Elder Yu Yu and immediately went forward and grabbed his wrist. Where's my disciple? How is he now? Elder Yu Yu swallowed his saliva with difficulty and pointed downwards. There, mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1269. Elder Wanjing and Elder Wanjing looked in the direction of his finger, and both of them were speechless. Amidst the rolling mountain range, a towering mountain peak could be seen. It was no different from the other mountains, but at this moment, it had become the sole focus of attention. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, forming a huge vortex that was almost connected to the mountain peak. Wind and thunder roared, as if the mountain would be destroyed at any moment. Below, the surroundings of the mountain peak were already surrounded by numerous magical beasts. Some were crawling beside the rocks, some were standing on the branches, and some were hiding in the ravines. In short, all kinds of magical beasts had gathered from all directions. At first glance, the lowest level rank, 9, was at the outermost periphery, while the innermost circle was actually filled with divine beasts. The pressure of one divine beast was already very shocking, let alone when so many of them gathered together. Cold and greedy killing intent flashed in the countless pairs of cold and ruthless eyes that were looking at the mountain in the middle. Space seemed to have frozen, making people's hair stand on end. Just looking at it from afar was enough to suffocate people. Elder Wanjing and Elder Wanjing were stunned on the spot. They never thought that they would see such a scene after coming here. Elder Wanjing opened his mouth, his lips pale. Where is Chu Yu? Elder Yu Yu swallowed his saliva with difficulty. He's in a cave on that mountain. Actually, anyone who saw this scene could easily guess Chu Yu's position. Not to mention these two experienced and knowledgeable elders. He just didn't want to believe it. Because this was too frightening and worrisome. Why is he there? No, that's not right. Is he okay now? Elder Wanjing unconsciously tightened his grip on Elder Yu Yu's wrist. The latter knew that he was worried and hurriedly explained. Don't worry, he's still fine. However, Elder Wanjing was still unable to calm down. Even if everything was fine now, who could guarantee what would happen in the next moment? Elder Bo Yen was relatively calmer. After looking around carefully, a trace of suspicion flashed across his eyes. Is Chu Yu preparing to break through? This was basically the only answer that could cause such a situation. Elder Yu Yu nodded. But isn't he only at the middle of the 7th rank? Even if he wants to break through, he shouldn't have caused such a huge commotion. He's not trying to break through to the peak of the 7th step. Elder Yu Yu took a deep breath. He's trying to break through to the 8th step in one go. Elder Wanjing subconsciously looked at him and frowned. How is this possible? Elder Yu Yu didn't say anything and just looked at him helplessly. Why would he need to lie about something like this? Yu Yu is right. This is indeed not the energy of heaven and earth that can be activated when one is preparing to break through to the peak of the 7th step. I even feel that this should only happen when one is breaking through to the 9th step. Elder Bo Yan's gaze swept across the many magical beasts below, and he felt rather regretful. I can only blame myself for not making things clear to that child back then. Now that things have turned out like this, Elder Wanjing rubbed his face hard. No, it's my dereliction of duty as a master. That day on the road, he had told Chu Yu many things, but he had missed this. He clearly knew that the child had outstanding talent, but how could he forget the most important point? Elder Bo Yen patted him on the shoulder to comfort him. Wanjing, things have already turned out like this. Let's not be in a hurry to blame ourselves. It's more important to get Chu Yu out first. After all, Chiyu had just broken through to the middle of the 7th step not long ago. Who would have thought that he was going to break through again so quickly? And he was going to break through to the 8th step. This series of events had happened too quickly and too suddenly, and they didn't even have time to react. Elder Wanzhang's face was filled with worry. Save. How can we save him now? Usually, these magical beasts were more reasonable, but the current situation was special. They were controlled by impulse and greed, and couldn't listen at all. It was even more impossible to use force. Even if the few of them worked together, they wouldn't be able to defeat these magical beasts. Elder Yu saw that the two of them were filled with worry and added, "Actually, there's still room to turn things around. Chiyu isn't alone now. Look at the position halfway up the mountain." The two of them followed his gaze and looked over. That's a steel spine beast. The corner of Elder Wanzhang's eyes twitched. That's right. But that steel spine beast isn't attacking Chiyu, but to protect him. As soon as he said that, Elder Bo Yen and Elder Wanzhang looked at him with an extremely strange gaze. Elder Yu smiled bitterly. It's true, roar. A roar suddenly came from not far away. Grief and despair. They all looked over, and only then did they see that there were two demonic beasts fighting on top of the mountain. No, to be precise, it should be a one-sided slaughter. The one that was attacking crazily was a golden cloud leopard that was brown all over and had golden spots on its body. On the ground in front of it, there was a steel spine beast that was covered in blood and on the verge of death. More than half of the steel needles on its back were broken, and its body was covered in wounds. There was almost no place that was unscathed. Most of them were caused by the bite of this golden cloud leopard. That's the cub of the steel spine beast. Elder Yu sighed helplessly. In order to protect Chiyu, its mother chose to stay in the cave and didn't go down to save it. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1270. It sounds unbelievable, right? But it is the truth. I saw it with my own eyes. Of course, all of you have witnessed it now. Elder Yu shook his head. I don't know what Chiyu did to make that adult steel spine beast act like this. It would rather sacrifice its own bloodline to protect him. Elder Bo Yen and Elder Yu were shocked and fell silent. But even with that steel spine beast, he might not be able to hold on for long. Elder Yu looked at the sky. It usually takes a long time to break through to rank 8. I am not sure when Chiyu will be able to break through. But once these magical beasts attack together, I am afraid. Not to mention, Chiyu might fail to break through. That would be even worse. Elder Bo Yen suddenly said, if we can lure the tiger away from the mountain, that won't work. Chiyu was about to break through and countless heaven and earth energy was being mobilized by him. In the eyes of these magical beasts, there was nothing more desirable than this. Elder Yu had been guarding the beast park for many years and was more experienced than the others. If even he said so, it meant that it was really impossible. And under such circumstances, it is basically impossible for us to get close to that mountain and take him away. The adult steel spine beast in front of the cave will obviously fight to the death against the invaders. We are included in that. Also, there are so many magical beasts watching us. If we break in now, not only will it not help the situation, it might even agitate them and force them to attack. This won't work, that won't work. Then what should we do? Elder Wanzhang couldn't help but shout at Elder Bo Yen. Look! I told you not to send him here. Danger! You didn't listen. Bo Yen, if anything happens to my disciple, I will not let you off. Facing Elder Wanzhang's anger, Elder Bo Yen didn't get angry. This is Lingxiao College. The dean isn't here, so I am in charge. With me here, I will not let anything happen to Chu Yu. His sonorous tone gradually calmed Elder Wanjing down. He closed his eyes. Bo Yen, I am sorry. I lost my composure just now, let's not talk about this now. The most important thing is to think of a way to bring him out, rumble. Another shocking energy ripple came from the cave. Elder Bo Yen clenched his fists and hesitated for a long time. Let's wait for him to break through first. Halfway up the mountain, the golden cloud leopard coldly stared at the steel-spine beast cub in front of it. The thick smell of blood permeated the air. It was a divine beast. Dealing with a 9th-grade cub like this was a piece of cake. Moreover, the only adult steel-spine beast that could protect it had been guarding the mountain all this time and had not come down. The golden cloud leopard looked up and licked its paws as if provoking Lin Fan. Of course, Ah Cheong could see all of this clearly. Its eyes were scarlet red, filled with frenzied anger and hatred. There was no doubt that once it had the chance, it would kill the golden cloud leopard below. However, it did not move. It was like a city wall, firmly blocking the entrance of the cave, carefully protecting Chu Luyue inside. Only that pair of eyes stared at the golden cloud leopard's every move. It remembered every single wound that the other party had left on its child's body. As long as Chu Luyue broke through, it would repay this pain 1,000 times over on the golden cloud leopard. Seeing the hatred in Ah Cheong's eyes, a hint of satisfaction appeared in the golden cloud leopard's eyes. It wanted the other party to feel this pain. It wanted it to see its cub being killed with its own eyes. It was extremely difficult for steel-spine beasts to have children. Some would only give birth to one cub in their entire life. This caused them to dote on and value their children very much. Some steel-spine beasts would even die of depression after losing their children. This one was probably no exception. Thinking of this, the golden cloud leopard became even more arrogant and proud. It tilted its head and looked at the steel-spine beast cub lying on the ground, almost dead. At this moment, the steel-spine beast cub was already numb from the pain. It did not even have the strength to stand up. It tried its best. The only thing it could do was to turn its head with difficulty and look halfway up the mountain. Mother and cub looked at each other from afar. Its eyes were filled with longing, desire, and despair. It seemed to want to shout again, but its throat could no longer make a sound. It could only pant like a broken bellows. After several failed attempts, it finally gave up and slowly closed its eyes. 2 streams of tears fell from the steel-spine beast cub's eyes. The golden cloud leopard jumped onto its body, opened its bloody mouth, and bit towards the steel-spine beast cub's throat. It would definitely die with this bite. Ah Cheong trembled violently and subconsciously wanted to close its eyes. But it did not. It wanted to see clearly how the other party killed its cub. It endured silently, but 2 streams of blood tears rolled down. The golden cloud leopard's sharp fangs flickered with a cold light. It lowered its head and bit. Swoosh! An extremely sharp sound of something tearing through the air rang out. The golden cloud leopard was shocked and immediately dodged to the side. However, it was fast, but that cold wind was faster. It had not even completely jumped away from the steel-spine beast cub when the space between its eyebrows was suddenly pierced from behind by a sharp sword. However, this was not the end. The sword actually brought it out and nailed it to the ground. Blood splattered everywhere. Its body stiffened, its eyeballs popped out, and half of its head was deformed. It was miserable and terrifying. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1271. This sudden sword strike shocked everyone on the spot. The surroundings of the mountain fell into a strange silence. However, Cheong reacted instantly and looked back excitedly. A slender figure was walking out of the deep and serene cave. It was Chu Luiyue. She walked over step by step, landing silently, her movements comfortable and natural. Her every move seemed to be filled with an indescribable elegance and freedom. Even the wind seemed to be especially gentle when it passed by her. The sky was very dark at the moment, but when she appeared, the surroundings seemed to light up in an instant. She looked the same as before, but vaguely, there seemed to be something different. That was a change that would only occur after she became stronger. Cheong, what are you spacing out for? Hurry up and bring it back. Chu Luiyue stood still and smiled at Cheong. Cheong suddenly came back to her senses, nodded vigorously, and ran down. Bang! Bang! Its body was extremely large. When it ran down the mountain, it looked like it wanted to trample the entire mountain. But it was extremely fast, and the distance wasn't very far to begin with. It arrived in the blink of an eye. It carefully lowered its head and cautiously and lovingly nudged the head of the steel-spine beast cub lying on the ground. A sparkling radiance appeared on its silver horn. It moved closer and touched the cub's horn with its horn. A warm and majestic power instantly flowed into the cub's body. The steel-spine beast cub that had been despairing and waiting for death didn't wait for that fatal blow. Instead, it felt a familiar presence. It slowly opened its eyes and saw its mother whom it was most familiar with. It stared blankly, as if it didn't understand what had happened. Cheong carefully carried it and walked back step by step. With the support of its power, the dying steel-spine beast cub recovered a portion of its strength. It only vaguely understood what had happened when it was placed in front of its own cave again. Its injuries are quite serious. I'll give it some medicine first to stabilize its situation. Later, I'll treat it carefully and nurse it back to health. As Chu Luiyue spoke, he took out a bottle, poured out 5 pills, and fed them to the steelback beast cubs. A normal person would only need 1 pill, but the steel-spine beast had a huge body, so 5 pills were more or less enough. The cub didn't struggle and swallowed it obediently. Cheong stuck close to its face. Her eyes were still blood red, but the hatred and despair in them had already disappeared. What replaced it was endless joy and gratitude. The mother and son quietly snuggled together, as if nothing could separate them. Chu Luiyue felt a lump in his throat when he saw this. He solemnly said to Cheong, Cheong, this time. Thank you. All the emotions, gratitude, shame, comfort, were gathered in these few words. Although Chu Luiyue had been in the cave the whole time and did not see what had happened with her own eyes, she had been paying attention to her surroundings before and after her breakthrough. She could roughly guess what had happened. She never thought that Cheong would be willing to give up her own child for her. This shocked and touched her, but also made her feel guilty. I will help it recuperate. Chu Luiyue paused. Also, next time. Don't do this again. Cheong shook her head. If she had to do it again, she would still make the same choice. For her child, she could give up her own life to avenge it. But she wanted her to live. Chu Luiyue's heart seemed to be blocked by something, and tears welled up in her eyes. She took a deep breath, and a bright and proud smile bloomed on her lips. I was wrong. There won't be a next time. She would never allow such a thing to happen again. You stay here and guard it. Leave the rest to me. As Chu Luiyue spoke, she stepped forward and raised her hand. Swish! The sword that killed the golden cloud leopard quickly flew back. Sharp, cold, and majestic. It was Scarlet Cloud's sword. Chu Luiyue held the sword hilt tightly. It was slightly cold to the touch, and the eyes of the dragon head on the hilt flickered with a cold luster. However, Chu Liyue's heart was burning with passion. Even though Chu Liyue had already predicted that Qi Shao's sword's prowess would be many times stronger than all the Yuan instruments she had before, its frightening destructive power still shocked Chu Liyue when it was truly used. When Chu Liyue threw out the sword, she actually didn't inject any force into it. She even casually threw out the sword due to the urgent situation back then and controlled it to kill the golden cloud leopard with her thoughts. In the end, it killed it with one blow. One had to know that the golden cloud leopard was a real divine beast. From this, one could see the power of Scarlet Cloud's sword. A venerable artifact. It was indeed worthy of its reputation. Chu Liyue lowered her gaze to take a look. After killing a divine beast, Scarlet Cloud's sword was still bright and clean, without a trace of blood. The surroundings were completely silent. The roars of various magical beasts that were previously filled with all kinds of roars came to an abrupt end the moment the golden cloud leopard was killed. Among those present, the lowest level was a 9th grade magical beast. Of course, they were not stupid. At the very least, after witnessing the scene just now, they would not treat Chu Liyue as a piece of meat that could be slaughtered on a chopping board. Chu Liyue looked up, and her cold eyes swept across the surrounding magical beasts one by one. Her red lips curled into a cold smile. Who's next? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1272. It was still dead silent. Only the night breeze blew through the mountains, causing her clothes to flutter. The young man standing on the mountain had a slender figure, but at this moment, he straightened his back and confronted the beasts. Most importantly, he didn't lose in terms of aura. Elder Yu and the other two were standing in the air. When they saw this scene, they were all stunned on the spot. Their expressions turned sluggish for an instant. Is this really my disciple, Chu Yu? Elder Wanjing felt his throat dry up as he stuttered out the question. As soon as he said this, he wanted to give himself a slap. What kind of nonsense was this? If that wasn't his precious disciple, who else could it be? Look at that face. Look at that figure. Look at that imposing aura. And that scarlet cloud sword. Wasn't that the precious disciple that he had been longing for? Rank 8, he really broke through to become a rank 8 warrior. Elder Bo Yen muttered softly, his eyes filled with shock. Breaking through to become a rank 8 warrior was definitely not that simple. Many cultivators had to start preparing in advance in order to cross this threshold and used almost all their means. However, those who could successfully break through were few and far between. The most important thing was that the more talented a cultivator was, the more difficulties and troubles they would face when breaking through this hurdle. This was because after becoming a rank 7 warrior, every step they took would greatly affect their future development. Every step they took was as if they were treading on thin ice, and they couldn't afford to make any mistakes. Chu Yu definitely had outstanding talent in this aspect. However, he actually broke through so casually on a broken mountain in the Beast Park. He could still clearly remember the shocking phenomenon in the sky and the terrifying commotion that came from the cave when they had just rushed over. This proved Chu Yu's talent as a warrior, but it also made them more worried. Elder Bo Yen was almost certain that Chu Yu wouldn't succeed. However, it had only been a short while, and he actually succeeded. Chu Yu even killed a mythical beast with a single slash. If it was someone else, even if they broke through to rank 9, they might not be able to do it, let alone rank 8. Comparatively speaking, Elder Yu was the calmest of the three. He had been here the whole time and had almost witnessed the whole thing, so he was already mentally prepared. Of course, his ability to accept it was much higher than the other two. He took a deep breath and comforted her. Bo Yen, Wanjing, you can relax a little. Normally speaking, this is the most dangerous time. The origin power around a cultivator who has just broken through has a fatal attraction to these magical beasts. Under normal circumstances, they would have attacked by now. However, because Chuyu had taken the lead and killed a golden cloud leopard, they were rather wary of him. If they choose to retreat after some consideration, then this matter will be completely resolved. Elder Yu Yu's words lifted the spirits of Elder Wanzheng and Elder Wanzheng. If that was the case, then it would be for the best. If the two sides fought, both sides would definitely be injured. If these magical beasts were smart enough and tactful enough to choose to give up on attacking, it would undoubtedly save everyone a lot of trouble. Now is a critical moment in the confrontation between the two sides. Once these magical beasts saw that Chuyu had the slightest bit of cowardice and fear, they would definitely attack. Whether they succeed or not depends on Chuyu. Elder Yu Yu said in a low voice. In the deathly silent confrontation, no magical beasts stepped forward. However, they didn't back off at all and just stared at Chu Luiyue with their greedy and ruthless eyes. Of course, at this moment, there was a hint of wariness in their eyes. Before this, they had only sensed a great temptation, so they had gathered over without caring about anything else. But now, they all realized that behind this temptation was great danger. That insolent golden cloud leopard was a precedent. Those who want to fight, just come forward. Those who want to give up, step back. Chu Luiyue was a little impatient and raised her voice. I will count to 3. Those who do not move will also be considered as fighting. Saying so, she raised her other hand and stretched out a slender white finger. 1. A small group of magical beasts started to become restless. 2. The magical beast standing in the innermost circle also started to look at each other, obviously trying to find out what the other was thinking. And some of the 9th grade magical beasts in the outer circle had already started to retreat. That human who had just broken through was indeed very tempting, but before they wanted anything, they had to ensure that they could stay alive to enjoy it. In any case, there was a group of divine beasts in front, and they would not get anything in the end, so they might as well leave. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes and shouted one last time. 3. This time, about half of the magical beasts standing in the middle of the circle also started to retreat. And the divine beasts in the innermost circle still did not move. Oh, that was not it either. One of them took a step forward. It was a wolf. Its fur was black and shiny, but there was a smear of gold on its forehead, and a pair of wings on its back. Its eyes were very special. There were no pupils, only the whites of its eyes, and they emitted a white light. At first glance, it looked very strange. A golden black demon wolf. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. This was also a divine beast, and its explosive power and combat strength were extremely strong, even stronger than the golden cloud leopard. Of course, if it did not have the strength, it would not have dared to take this step. Hearing her words, the golden black demon wolf lowered its body slightly, revealing its sharp teeth, and let out a low growl from its throat. This was a sign that it was preparing to attack. Chu Luiyue laughed. Good, looks like you want to fight with me. As she spoke, she turned her gaze and looked at the other magical beasts around her. After a moment, she retracted her gaze. With a flick of her wrist, the light as a feather scarlet heaven sword drew a beautiful arc in the air and pointed at the golden black demon wolf from afar. Come. As soon as she finished speaking, Chu Luiyue pushed off with the tip of her foot and soared into the air. At the same time, the golden black demon wolf also flapped its wings and rose into the air. It went straight for Chu Luiyue. When the 3 elders who were watching from afar saw this, a trace of worry flashed across their faces. Golden black demon wolf. This is one of the strongest magical beasts in the Beast Park, and it is cunning and extremely difficult to deal with. Can Chuyu, do it alone? Elder Wanjing could not help but ask. Elder Yu laughed bitterly. This is really hard to say. Chuyu being able to kill the golden cloud leopard with one strike was already quite unexpected. To be honest, I feel that her current strength should be much stronger than the average beginner level 8 stage. So this victory is really hard to say. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1273. Of course, he hoped that Chuyu could win. With the death of the golden cloud leopard, he was certain that Chuyu could defeat 1/5 of the divine beasts here with his current strength. Although the golden cloud leopard was considered quite powerful here, it had been fighting with the steel spine beast for a long time and its combat power must have been reduced. Therefore, Elder Yu naturally lowered the ratio. But even if it was only 1/5, it was already very outstanding. The Stage 9 warriors in the academy might not even be able to defeat one of the divine beasts here. Even if most of the credit went to the Scarlet Heaven Sword, it was Chuyu's, so of course, it was also a part of her strength. He paused and lowered his voice. This golden black fiend wolf has a high status in the Beast Park. If Chuyu can defeat it this time, he will definitely be able to force the other beasts to retreat. In mid-air, Chu Luiyue and the golden black fiend wolf faced each other. Chu Luiyue sized it up and shook her head. TSK, what a pity. A trace of confusion flashed across the golden black fiend wolf's eyes. It obviously did not understand where Chu Luiyue's words came from. Chu Luiyue smiled. I wanted to help you find a master, but based on your temperament, I don't think you will submit to anyone. The golden black fiend wolf's fur instantly stood up. Its murderous aura was awe-inspiring. Obviously, Chu Luiyue's words offended it. Chu Luiyue held the Scarlet Heaven Sword tightly and brandished it. There was one more thing she did not say. She had already decided to use it as an example, so it had to die. A whoop! The golden black fiend wolf raised its head and howled. In the next moment, it moved and quickly flew toward Chu Luiyue. With a flap of its wings, it suddenly split into two. It flanked Chu Luiyue from both sides. Elder Yu frowned. The golden black fiend wolf is extremely fast, and it has a clone that is almost as powerful as the real body. We have to kill both the real body and the clone to truly kill it. Otherwise, as long as it has a breath left, it can come back again. I wonder if Chuyu will be able to handle it this time. Elder Bo Yen suddenly said. Doesn't he have a contracted divine beast? Why hasn't he summoned it yet? If the man and the beast join forces now, they might have a chance of winning. Elder Wanjing was so nervous that he couldn't even speak. He clenched his fists and his palms were sweaty. Elder Yu knew that he was worried. After thinking for a moment, he advised, actually, if Chuyu really can't handle it, we can find an opportunity. Chi. Two short sounds of sharp weapons piercing flesh rang out almost at the same time. Elder Yu's throat seemed to have been strangled by someone, forcing him to swallow the rest of his words. He widened his eyes in shock, not knowing what to say for a moment. Because, in the air not far in front of them, the golden black demon wolf's true body and doppelganger were both pierced through. It hit the center of the eyebrows, a fatal blow. He didn't even have time to cry for help before he died. The one on the left was Scarlet Heaven Sword. As for the right, when Elder Yu saw it clearly, he couldn't help but gasp. It was actually a scabbard. The scabbard looked ordinary, and its entire body was round and blunt. Logically speaking, it shouldn't have been able to pierce through a golden black demon wolf's flesh. But, the truth was right in front of them. From the beginning to the end of this battle, Chuyu still only used one strike. Chu Luiyue raised her hand and called Scarlet Heaven Sword back. The moment the sword and scabbard were pulled out, the figure on the left disappeared instantly. The one on the right quickly fell down. A moment later, a muffled sound came from below. Clang! Scarlet Heaven's sword returned to its scabbard. What made Chu Liyue satisfied was that not only Scarlet Heaven's sword's body, but its scabbard also didn't have a single trace of blood on it. Other than an extremely faint smell of blood, it didn't look like she had just killed a divine beast. Her movements were smooth and her mood was relaxed. However, the other demonic beasts present, and even the three elders, were all in disarray. What's going on? A scabbard can also kill. And it's the real body. They didn't even see clearly when the scabbard appeared, and in the next second, it directly exploded the golden black demon wolf's head. Chu Yu's move, isn't it a little too abnormal? Countless gazes fell on Chu Liyue. She calmly adjusted her breath, then looked down and raised the corner of her lips. Anything else? In fact, her current state wasn't as good as it looked. Because using Scarlet Heaven's sword twice had taken a huge toll on her. The first time, it wasn't obvious. At that time, she had just broken through, and coincidentally, the steelback beast's cub was in danger. She was highly focused and didn't pay attention to anything else. But this time, she clearly felt that after she used the sword, a considerable portion of her strength and spirit had been consumed. If a person wanted to maintain the best battle state, it didn't only depend on the amount of force in the body, but also on spirit, willpower, and many other aspects. Just like now, Chu Liyue actually didn't inject any force into Scarlet Heaven's sword twice, and it was very light when she picked it up and put it down. But the price of using it wasn't small. After a short silence, some of the magical beasts began to retreat. And the divine beasts in the innermost area seemed to be wavering. Chu Liyue raised her sword and pointed downward. But before she could say anything, a familiar voice sounded in her ears. Chu Yu, wait. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1274. Chu Liyue turned to look. The person who spoke was Elder Yu Yu. His figure flashed, and he quickly headed over here. Seeing his movement, Elder Wanzhang and Elder Yu Yu immediately followed. Perhaps it was because Chu Liyue had dealt with the golden black fiendish wolf too quickly that the rest of the beasts were afraid. Thus, when they saw the actions of the three elders, they did not make any extreme reactions. Instead, they stared vigilantly at the sky. Chu Yu. Elder Yu Yu came in front of Chu Liyue and sized her up. He finally heaved a sigh of relief. However, when his eyes met with Chu Liyue's, the emotions in his eyes were complicated. You. Don't continue fighting this round. Chu Liyue was taken aback. Soon after, he saw Elder Yu Yu's face reveal a troubled and distressed expression. The Academy spent a lot of effort to nurture the godly beasts in this beast park. It's fine if you kill 2 of them as a warning. If you really kill all of them, this beast park will, Chu Liyue suddenly understood. So it was reasonable. Thinking about it carefully, it was understandable. Among the beasts in the beast park, there were quite a number of godly beasts, not including the grade 9 ones. Some of these godly beasts had been raised here since a long time ago. Some were brought back from the outside by the elders and students through various means. The existence of the beast park was not meaningless. Some outstanding students would sometimes have the opportunity to enter the beast park and choose a beast to contract with. Of course, the prerequisite was that they had to be strong enough to take it down. This was considered a huge asset to the Academy. You rushed over so quickly just to say this. Elder Wanzhang looked at him in disbelief. Are you kidding me? His precious disciple had almost died here. This fellow's first thought was to ask Chu Yu to stop fighting. Elder Yu Yu's face turned red. He coughed and signaled Elder Bo Yen with his eyes. Wanzheng, I don't have a choice, do I? It's not easy for our academy to raise these divine beasts. Although they threatened Chuyu earlier, they didn't actually do anything. Furthermore, after the golden black demonic wolf's example, they definitely won't be willing to continue fighting with Chuyu. It's best to reconcile now. Bo Yen, don't you agree? Elder Bo Yen pondered for a moment and nodded. What you said makes sense. Wanzheng, I know that you feel sorry for Chuyu, but if you continue to let him continue killing, things will only move in the opposite direction when they reach an extreme. Elder Bo Yen patted him on the shoulder. For Chuyu's sake, we have to know when to stop. Although Elder Wanzheng was angry, he wasn't someone who couldn't listen to reason. Seeing that Bo Yen and Elder Yu both had the same attitude, he struggled for a while before finally agreeing reluctantly. He flicked his sleeves and snorted. Then you have to compensate our Chuyu well. What happened today, if it wasn't for his own ability, perhaps. He couldn't bear to say the following words, but everyone present understood what he meant. Elder Bo Yen also smiled. Don't worry about that. Chuyu has suffered a lot today, even if you don't say it, I won't mistreat him. As he spoke, he looked at Chuyu. Chuyu, this matter is indeed caused by my lack of consideration. Whatever you want, just say it, this old man will do his best to satisfy you. Chu Luyue blinked. This student doesn't want anything now. I wonder if I can keep it first and exchange it with you in the future. Elder Bo Yen naturally agreed. Everything is up to you. Chu Luyue smiled. Thank you, Elder Bo Yen. Why are you thanking him? Elder Wanzheng stepped forward and grabbed Chu Luyue's wrist. If it wasn't for him, would you have suffered so much? He was really scared to death just now. Chu Luyue patted his hand comfortingly and smiled. Master, don't worry, aren't I fine now? Besides, if I didn't come here, I might not have broken through so quickly. Speaking of this, Elder Wanzheng finally swept away his previous sorrow and became happy and excited. A Stage 8 warrior. In Lingxiao College, this level wasn't considered high, especially for the warriors. It was almost not even enough to enter the school. But Chuyu is only 16 years old now. And he majored in celestial physician. Under such circumstances, he had successfully broken through to a Stage 8 warrior. How could he not be excited and proud? Needless to say, this kid had already silently broken through to become a level 9 mystic master. Elder Wanzheng was still worried that his precious disciple would be abducted and was very concerned about the direction he wanted to focus on. But now, he suddenly thought it through. What was there to care about? His disciple was top-notch in all aspects, and as his master, he could only bask in his glory. Anyway, his disciple was his. In the future, not only would he be a celestial physician, but he might even be able to go to the mystic master and warrior side to show off to those old fellows. Elder Wanzheng felt that it was worth it. It's all because you worked hard. Seeing that Elder Wanzheng was finally appeased, Chu Luyue turned around and asked, Elder Yu, even if I'm willing to reconcile, the mythical beasts below don't seem to have any intention of leaving, I'll talk to them. Elder Yu heaved a sigh of relief. As long as Chuyu agreed, the rest would be easy. Actually, the remaining mythical beasts might not really want to continue fighting with Chuyu, but as mythical beasts, they were very prideful. They had already forced themselves to the front, and if they left just like that, they would appear too cowardly. To be honest, if they really wanted to devour Chuyu like before, they would have already attacked together just now. Why would they wait until now? Not to mention directly letting the three of them come over. He had stayed in this beast park for a long time, and he was very clear about this. Hence, Elder Yu stepped forward and looked down. His dignified gaze swept across the mythical beasts that had yet to leave. Today's matter was started by you all. Chuyu killed the golden cloud leopard and the golden black demon wolf in order to protect himself. His deep and sonorous voice reverberated throughout the area. Chuyu came here to accept his punishment, and he has no other intentions. He has never really wanted to kill you all. For the next period of time, as long as you all live in harmony, he will leave when the time is up. For our sake, both sides should take a step back and let this matter rest. How about it? Elder Yu said the last sentence very sincerely. He admired Chuyu very much, and he also had feelings for the Beast Park. Of course, he did not want to see both sides continue to fight. If they could reconcile, that would be the best. After a short moment of silence, one of the mythical beasts finally retreated slowly. Once there was a beginning, the rest would follow suit. 2. 3. Soon, all the mythical beasts in the surroundings retreated. Their figures were hidden in the mountains. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1275. The night sky was dark and the mountain wind was silent. As the magical beasts retreated, the thick smell of blood and killing intent that filled the air seemed to have quietly dissipated. The surroundings quietened down and gradually returned to its original state. Elder Bo Yan's hanging heart finally settled down. This was indeed the best ending. Chu Liuyue's gaze swept across the dark forest, and there were ripples in the still water. Wait, Yu, what did you mean by that? Elder Wanjing suddenly reacted. You said that for the rest of the time. Does Chuyu still want to continue staying here? Ah. Elder Yu was also stunned and subconsciously looked at Elder Bo Yan. But it was said that it would be a month. It has only been less than 10 days, I thought. No one said that Chuyu would be allowed to go back from today onwards. He naturally thought that it would continue, that was why he said that. Bo Yan. Tell me. Is the punishment still going to continue? Elder Wanjing stared and asked. His precious disciple had almost died here. He did not believe that Bo Yan would have the face to let Chuyu continue to stay here. Elder Bo Yan also had a headache. The reason he sent Chuyu over was to teach him a lesson and grind down his temper, so that he wouldn't always be ignorant of the severity of the matter and boldly go out to cause trouble. But he did not expect that such a thing would happen. He had also seen the situation just now clearly. It was indeed a perilous situation. If not for Chuyu's outstanding performance, they might not have been able to save him in such a short time. After this incident, the lesson and warning for Chuyu should be enough. Leaving now was not a big deal. But, when he thought about how every time this kid made a mistake, they would give him all kinds of punishments, but it seemed to be useless. Elder Bo Yan felt an inexplicable grievance in his heart. After hesitating for a moment, he finally spoke. Since he has already experienced this here, then. Let's just return. Student wants to continue staying here. Chu Luiyue suddenly opened his mouth and interrupted Elder Bo Yan's words. The 3 elders looked at him in shock. Disciple, what did you say? Elder Wanjing was shocked and hurriedly winked at him. This was such a good opportunity to leave this place in an honorable manner. Why was this child so stubborn? What's so good about staying here? You. Do you think it's not dangerous enough today? Chu Luiyue smiled. Master, today is a special day. It's all my fault for being careless and forgetting that I can't achieve a breakthrough in the Beast Park. That's why I've attracted so much trouble. I came here to receive my punishment. If I were to stay here for a few days and leave, it doesn't seem appropriate. Therefore, this student is willing to continue staying here until the last day of the 1-month period. His words were extremely sincere. Elder Wanjing originally wanted to say a few more words of advice, but after seeing the young man's resolute expression, he finally swallowed his words. He waved his hand and turned his head away. Up to you. No matter what, you have to come out in one piece, understand? Chu Luiyuan knew that he had a sharp tongue but a soft heart, so he smiled happily. Don't worry, master. I will definitely do as you say. Chu Luiyuan's words made Elder Bo Yen see her in a new light. Initially, he thought that Chu Yu would take this opportunity to leave directly. The Beast Park was dangerous. After today's incident, Chu Yu should be more aware of this fact. Under such circumstances, he still chose to stay. It was really rare. It was time to get to know this young man again, Elder Bo Yen thought to himself. All right. Since Chu Yu said so, we will continue according to our previous agreement. As long as you behave yourself during the remaining time, these magical beasts should not deliberately make things difficult for you. After all, with the lesson learned from the previous incident, anyone who wanted to deal with Chu Yu would have to think twice. Chu Luiyuan nodded her head. Thank you, Elder Bo Yen. Elder Yu Yu, who was at the side, suddenly thought of something, and his expression changed slightly. He stared at Chu Luiyuan closely, and his eyes were filled with questions. Wait, Chu Yu, how do you know that I can't achieve a breakthrough in the Beast Park? After he finished speaking, the few of them quieted down. When the three elders met, they had already expressed that they did not tell Chu Yu about this matter. But just now, he said that he had forgotten. Other than the elders in charge of patrolling here, almost no one else knows about this, but you already knew. One could not blame Elder Yu Yu for being suspicious, but this matter was indeed strange. Because very few people knew about this, and even fewer people knew that Chu Yu was imprisoned here at the same time. How did Chu Yu know about this? Under the scrutinizing gaze of the three elders, Chu Luiyuan's expression did not change and he chuckled. It was Senior Rong Xiao who told me. Elder Bo Yen frowned slightly. He did not know that you were imprisoned here. In actual fact, he and Elder Wanjing had discussed and decided on this matter together. Before that, Rong Xiao had already gone to another place to receive his own punishment. Ouyang and Shang Yusin knew about this because he had mentioned it on Thousand Wine Mountain. But Rong Xiao definitely did not. Chu Luiyuan paused for a moment before she smiled deeply and said, You're right. Before I came to the academy, Senior Rong Xiao specially told me about this. The three of them looked at each other. This explanation seemed to make sense. After all, Rong Xiao had even taught him how to open the academy's barrier. What else could he not say? In that case, it was quite normal for Chu Yu to know about this. He has been teaching you all sorts of nonsense. Elder Wanjing snorted coldly. He did not teach the good things, but he did teach all the bad things. Ordinary students were not allowed to enter the Beast Park, but Rong Xiao had already told them about this. Could it be that he had already predicted that Chu Yu would come here? Forget it. It's good that you know, but you must not be careless in the future. Elder Bo Yen reminded. It's getting late, we should go back first. Chu Luiyuan bowed respectfully. Elder, take care. Master, take care. After dealing with these matters, Chu Luiyuan returned to the mountain peak where she was previously. Halfway up the mountain, Chiong was still guarding there. When she saw Chu Luiyuan return, the last trace of worry in her eyes finally dissipated. Chu Luiyuan walked over. All right, those troubles have been solved. Let's go back first, I'll take a good look at it. Chiong nodded, rubbed the steel-spine beast cub lying on the ground lovingly, and then brought it into the cave. After walking in, Chu Luiyuan helped it to do a detailed examination. Don't worry, most of its flesh wounds will be fine after a period of recuperation. Chu Luiyue had to rejoice that the steel spine beast's physical strength was so strong that it could still hang on to its last breath even after being injured like this. She touched the steel spine beast cub's head. "This time, I owe you and your mother, and I will definitely repay it 100 times in the future. Let me give you a name. Let's call you Tao Tao. I hope that in the future, you can always be as naive and naughty as you are now, healthy and worry-free." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1276. Tao Tao rolled his big eyes, and it seemed that he was quite satisfied with the name. In fact, at the beginning, he was jealous and resentful of Chu Luiyue, especially when he was in a desperate situation and constantly sent signals for help to his mother, but he never got a response. He and his mother depended on each other. From the beginning of his memory, his mother had always treated him very well. He often made trouble outside, and his mother always protected him and didn't let any animals bully him. But when this person came, everything suddenly changed. He found that in his mother's heart, this person was more important than him. When he thought that he was going to die, this kind of emotion reached the peak. But she saved him. And her eyes were full of guilt and apology. Tao Tao suddenly felt that he couldn't be angry anymore. Especially the smell of her body was very good, which made him want to get close to her unconsciously. Yes, he wanted to get close to her at the beginning. But it was a pity that she seemed to misunderstand. His mother also kicked him several times for this. Tao Tao glanced at his mother, thinking of her despair and sadness when she ran towards him, and suddenly he was relieved. He closed his eyes and rubbed gently in Chu Luiyue's palm. Chu Luiyue felt warm in her heart. She went to the side, took out the medicine tripod and herbs, and began to prepare to refine medicine. Boom! A ball of crimson flame burned fiercely in the medicinal cauldron. The big cave was lit up. A lot of herbs were thrown in by Chu Luiyue in an orderly way. A strong smell of medicine with a bit of bitterness gradually spread. Chu Luiyue looked at the rising flame in the medicine tripod and the medicine soup that gradually merged together, and then she exhaled gently. She had to say, it was really cool after breaking through to the 8th stage. Her vigilance to the surroundings improved a lot, and her whole body seemed to have been baptized, light and free. Even when she was refining medicine, she felt a lot easier. This breakthrough finally digested the force that she had robbed from Taizu in the North Sea. But in addition, there was actually more power stored in the water droplets. Those things would only appear when he made a breakthrough in the future. Chu Luiyue even felt lucky that she broke through in the beast park this time. Although many evil beasts besieged her, it was scary but not dangerous. Most importantly, the only people who had witnessed her breakthrough were those few elders. Ordinary practitioners would never have such a movement when they broke through to the 8th stage. The more people knew it, the more difficult it was for her to hide her identity. She didn't have to worry about these people. But if she wanted to break through in the future, she was afraid that she had to prepare in advance. After her abilities increased, Chu Luiyue's refining speed became much faster. After a while, she fed the decoction to Tao Tao. Then she dealt with some herbs and covered the wounds on Tao Tao's body with them. Fortunately, she had a lot of herbs, so it was enough. Chu Luiyue decided to seek reimbursement from Elder Wanzhang after she left. After Tao Tao's injury was completely treated, an hour had passed. Chu Luiyue helped Ah Cheong to refine the elixir and adjust her blood. Although it didn't suffer any trauma, it had suffered great mental damage when it saw its child being beaten and almost killed. After dealing with the things here, Tao Tao had fallen asleep. Ah Cheong looked at it with love and care. Chu Luiyue patted Ah Cheong. Have a good rest today. We'll talk about other things tomorrow. There was no doubt that this was an extremely thrilling night. On the way back, Elder Bo Yen didn't talk much. When they were about to leave, Elder Bo Yen finally stopped him. Wanzheng. Elder Wanzheng turned back. Elder Bo Yen was silent for a moment, he seemed to hesitate. Chu Yu's situation. Did you know it before? Of course, Elder Wanzheng knew what he was asking, so he shook his head. I don't know. He has just broken through to the 8th rank, and he has already caused such a huge commotion. Elder Bo Yen took a deep breath. Find a time to ask him how many lightning tribulations he summoned when he broke through to the 7th rank. Elder Wanzheng also nodded in agreement. At the beginning, when Chu Yu came in, he only said that he was a 7th stage warrior. At that time, many people looked down on him. Even they thought that Chu Yu specialized in heavenly medicine and wasn't good at other cultivation, which was why he was like this. But now it seemed that it was not the case. His talent in these few areas is almost on par with each other. Wanzheng, you have picked up a good apprentice. Even Elder Bo Yen couldn't help but envy. It was enough to have such a student. Elder Wanzheng was happy in his heart, and there was a smile at the corner of his eyes. Of course, I have always had a good eye. For so many years in the academy, he had taught many students, but there were only a few who were accepted as disciples. In recent years, there was no one. To be honest, other than that girl back then, Chu Yu was the only one that caught my eye. I originally thought that he was only good at celestial physician, but I didn't expect. Elder Wanzheng's face revealed a trace of nostalgia. Now that I think about it, these two kids are really quite similar. Even the fact that their origins were unknown was the same. Elder Bo Yen laughed. It's all in the past, let's not talk about it. If you want to know about his background, find time to ask Rong Xiu, wouldn't you know? Elder Wanzheng chuckled and turned to leave. That's not necessary. If this kid is willing to say, then say it, if not, I will still pamper him. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1277. The night passed quickly. When the morning sun shone into the cave, Chu Luiyue opened her eyes. After a night's rest, her body had basically recovered to the best state. She stood up and stretched her muscles and bones. She could clearly feel that her body was much stronger than before. The vigorous force was running in her limbs and bones. She felt extremely comfortable. This was the feeling of becoming stronger. Chu Luiyue smiled in a good mood. She really didn't know how she would feel when she returned to the 9th level of warrior. There was a slight sound next to her. Chu Luiyue turned her head and saw that Tao Tao had also woken up. At this time, Tao Tao was blinking his eyes and looking at her. Tao Tao was lying on the ground. He was tightly bandaged. He looked like a big patched ball. Chu Luiyue blinked at him. Tao Tao seemed to be caught doing something bad in an instant. He closed his eyes guiltily. Chu Luiyue almost laughed out. At this time, Chiong also woke up. He rubbed Tao Tao's head helplessly and dotingly. Chiong, Tao Tao, I'll go out. Chu Luiyue said. Chiong raised his eyes and looked over. Even Tao Tao opened one of his eyes. It was a pity that Tao Tao's eyes were as big as a lantern. Although he tried his best to open a slit, it was still very obvious. Chu Luiyue had to pretend that she didn't see it. She explained to Chiong, I didn't have time to tell you before. I was punished here because I did something wrong. The punishment is 1 month. Since I'm here, it's not appropriate to stay here all the time. I have to go out. What do you think? In fact, Chiong didn't agree very much. There was a trace of worry in his eyes. After the battle yesterday, Chu Luiyue was now in a delicate balance with those evil beasts in the Beast Park. If she went out now, it was still a little dangerous. Cheong stood up. It seemed that he was going to go with her. Chu Luiyue shook her head. Cheong, I can go by myself. You stay here and take good care of Tao Tao. After the patrol, I'll come back naturally. Seeing that it was still worried, Chu Luiyue waved the Scarlet Heaven sword in his hand and smiled. They couldn't do anything to me yesterday, so they won't do anything to me today. Looking at the Scarlet Heaven sword, Cheong subconsciously took half a step back. Only then did it relax and nod at Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue put away Scarlet Heaven sword and walked outside. The Beast Park occupied an extremely large area with dozens of lofty and steep mountain peaks. The forest was lush and dense. When the breeze blew, the pines rustled. It was early in the morning, and the white fog in the middle of the mountain had yet to disperse, surging with the wind. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath. The cool air was refreshing, and it seemed to make him feel much more refreshed. She looked around her surroundings as far as she could. Where is the golden black demon wolf's cave? She asked in her heart. After a while, the three-eyed eagle's voice rang out. Southeast, behind 3 mountains. Chu Luiyue looked in the direction and saw an extremely steep mountain peak. With a tap of her foot, she soared into the air and headed straight there. Why are you going there? The three-eyed eagle couldn't help but ask. Yesterday, before Chu Luiyue went to rest, she specifically asked if it could find the location of the corresponding demon beast through its aura. After it gave an affirmative answer, Chu Luiyue didn't say anything else. In the end, she wanted to go there early in the morning. There's only one golden black demon wolf in this entire beast park, and you killed it yesterday. Why are you going to its cave? Chu Luiyue's thin lips curled up slightly. The golden black demon wolf is a divine beast, and there are many good things in its cave. If I don't go there, won't others benefit from it? Of course, it should be said that other beasts benefit. The three-eyed eagle couldn't refute this reason, so it tactfully shut its mouth. After Chu Luiyue broke through to the 8th level, her speed nearly doubled. This allowed her to reach the mountain peak where the golden black demon wolf's cave was located in 15 minutes. Suspended in mid-air, she saw the cave halfway up the mountain. Compared to Cheong's cave, this one was about half as small. However, as the golden black demon wolf's strength and level were considered one of the best here, Chu Luiyue didn't need to think to know that there must be many good things hidden inside. However, just as she was about to go over, she suddenly heard the three-eyed eagle's low voice. Wait! There's another demon beast in there. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes and smiled. Looks like I'm not the only one who has eyes on this treasure. She crossed her arms and stared at that place with a lazy expression. She murmured with a faint smile, "Can you find out what kind of demon it is?" The three-eyed eagle paused. The silver-eared piebald beast is also a divine beast. It's cunning but timid. Usually, it likes to do sneaky things. It doesn't have a good reputation among the divine beasts. Its strength is far inferior to the golden black demon wolf's. I think it's very bold. It even dares to take my things. Chu Luiyue said slowly. In the Beast Park, there was an unwritten rule: if one party was killed by the other, then everything of the party, including the territory, would belong to the other party. Chu Luiyue killed the golden black demon wolf yesterday. Everything in this cave should belong to her. Moreover, she killed it in front of so many demon beasts. The news should have spread here long ago. There wouldn't be any demon beast that didn't know about this. This was also why she didn't rush over immediately after the incident yesterday. Looks like in these few years, this place has been much more chaotic than before. Chu Luiyue tucked her fringe behind her ear and smiled faintly. If it was in the past, everyone would be well behaved. Why would they do such a thing? What do you plan to do? The legendary three-eyed eagle asked. It didn't know why, but from Chu Liyue's words, it faintly sensed a trace of inexplicable impulse. She seemed to have made up her mind. Chu Liyue smiled lazily. What else can I do? Naturally, I'll teach them not to break the rules. At this moment, a figure walked out of the cave. It was a demon beast that looked like a lion or a tiger. Its pointy ears were silver in color and its body was covered with crisscrossing flower spots. It seemed to be biting something in its mouth. It stuck its head out and looked around, intending to escape quickly. How many times has it been? A clear voice with a hint of laziness could be heard. The silver-eared spotted beast was shocked and hurriedly looked up. When it saw that the person was Chu Liyue, it was so shocked that it took a few steps back. Chu Liyue tilted her head and glanced at the thing in its mouth. It was a piece of dark gold stone about the size of a fist. Under the sunlight, it emitted a faint glow. Dark gold condensed stone. This was a treasure that could only be found in the habitat of the golden black demon wolf. It was incomparably hard and contained an extremely rich energy. It was very precious. The silver-eared spotted beast only hesitated for a moment before it spat out the dark gold condensed stone in its mouth. Chu Liyue narrowed her eyes and smiled. Don't you think it's too late to regret now? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.